whoop. Bum bum a bum 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 a bum bum a bum a bum a bum 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 a bum bum. I've become the PNG tuber. It's so simple, and yet so illustrious, and yet so different. Lol, Kakamau. Share, my share, my share, my share, 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 my share, my share, my share, share. Share, my share, my share, my share, 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 my share, my share, my share, share. Share my world. Share, my share, my share, my share, 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 my share, my share, my. The Cybersand front is full of some bullshit. Hello, guest. Behold, Shruggler. Because I'm lazy and don't want to deal with the potential fact that the sun hasn't properly risen, I am PNG'd. Ugh. Big changes, big moves, big stuff. Make sure all the buttons work properly. The one thing that I can tell you for certain is that what's killing me most on the Cyberstand front is that there are people who just do not understand how to fuck to pay attention to a Vox cannon or their situational awareness. Did I notice and catch the Restore Britain post? No, I did not. Where am I supposed to be looking? I basically had all of my day yesterday consumed by, my woman. Then I discovered a place that serves a wonderful peach tea, and now I'm addicted to it and I need more of it. One phrase. Heavy armor surged. Yes, sir! Exactly, like, exactly. Exactly, Exocrusher. Literally, every single time. I needed to do at least 3 missions, because I was starting off raw. I have seen nothing, I have done nothing, except for the one Vox TikTok that I was forcibly exposed to. Every single time. Nobody has an answer for the heavy armor surge. So I had to return to my old reliable. And after changing up my old reliable kit, I found a consistent main start that just requires a swap from the heavy machine, like from the machine gun to the heavy machine gun. However, I think the one thing I do not like is the box tanks. Namely because they suffer the same problem as a normal armor regiment, which is that they refuse to stop fucking moving, which means you will botch throwing your grenade into their grenade slot. Aside from that, and users possibly cross-killing you, it is what it is. However, that remains certain. However, as we begin up, good morning, Vietnam! It is currently 12:12 on the 15th of February, on yet another Sunday. We're in the half of the month. I have yet to receive the backside of my YouTube payments. However, there is good news. For people who don't somehow care about what my living situation, I am now being properly paid for my job, which means money consistently. This means that you continue to allow me to do free things, but I'm less stuck between payments where I'm allowed to have fun and exist and be a human being, and I can actually do more things. On the bright side, this means that on top of being able to buy things myself for content, you all directly supporting means that that goes directly towards the thing that you pay for. I know I keep saying that every single week, but it literally does free me up to do things like do the things I need to do, such as the content deliverables that have come directly from both myself, others, and especially Exo Crusher for the last 2 months. Why is that song looping? That song's not supposed to loop. But yeah, your donations, your content, your adherence makes it possible for me to continue doing my job. But also, I am slowly making the process of transverting and putting this show into a podcast format on all proper platforms. It's going to take me about another week or a half to do that. How I had not already done that is because I am lazy and a boomer when it comes to that kind of process. This is something I originally wanted to do for the original podcast, but through the combination of literally running almost all the shit myself, as well as finding a proper co-host, some things end up getting in the way. 'Cause there's something in my ass. But it's working out. Don't worry about it. It's going to happen. It's going to happen very quickly and very slowly at the same time. Just out of nowhere, it's going to be like, bam, I didn't know I could find Carl's thing everywhere, and it's going to be done. Holy shit, that is a horrible mix. That's just the same thing. Do none of these motherfuckers have the ability to be original? Apparently not. 15 different examples of Share My World slowed, and not a single one is catchy. Gay, 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 gay. I suppose what we'll be going with is the St. Lamar mix. Okay. Now then, on to today's business and agenda. Also, I do believe you. I do believe that the first days of Cyber Sam were worse. I saw those patch notes. Anyways, moving on to today's agenda. I'm going to be trying something different. We still do continue to have call-in users. However, we're going to be going over shit that I have found or has been brought to me as an extension of what I do regularly on the weekdays. Because it appears to me, because it was brought to my attention literally last night, that there are people who cannot find the takes that I give as a part of my daily show. So what's probably going to start happening is I'm going to start collating them to the Sunday show, and then covering things as normal over the weekend and week. Let me cut that in half. There we go. That works. I'm going to start pushing them to a slot here. so that they can be found in a simple place as evergreen content. Because I do know that from each broadcast, from broadcast to broadcast throughout the week, despite those broadcasts do remain on the Carl at Home playlist, that there are some people that just are not technologically savvy, which is to say they can't press 2 buttons. However, even with the polite roasting that I'm giving here, it is what it is. But outside of that, if you have something important to say, or you think you have something important to bring to my attention, or you would like to push back on something I'd say, click the link that is currently pinned in any side of the comments and content on any of the pages where I'm live, for I'm live on 4 platforms, including X. If you have something to say, don't forget it and write it down. Otherwise, we're going to have to make room for somebody else to come in so they can have something to say. Otherwise, sit down, strap in, and enjoy the fucking ride. Aside from that, what we're going to do, and what's going to start happening frequently, because the VTuber shit is not, this is not a thing that's happening. This is just me being lazy because I don't want to turn on my camera. What we're going to do, and what's going to start becoming normal, is that on top of looking into topics and talking about conversations, we're going to go off of content that is prepared for this purpose. So tell your mom, tell your friends, tell your dad to come tune in, because it's time to start clowning. Now then. Just to talk a little bit about my recent experiences. I am currently in between games, and the content pivot change over to Helldivers has already begun. Those of you that didn't see it, I will show you here, because I put it together last night for my return to Helldivers. And by that I mean the PNGs that I have here as a representation of my avatar. Boop. Witness. It is Sergeant Major Brigadier Rear General Helldiver Montgomery, with Afro included. There are various other ones that are being drawn and made, by the way. Almost all of them are coming from Wilhe, because I brought him and showed them these. This and a couple of other ones were actually created by me utilizing an AI flop. I was able to create these utilizing that. So each of them are iterations on his original drawing and designs, but then modified for the particular content in question. So this one was made for Helldivers. And this one, the one that I've been using, the red bandana, was made for literally regular everyday Carl is mad and came here for war type shit. So you all would have seen this one on December 6th, and this one was made yesterday. Sometimes I like being lazy, so you're going to be seeing these a lot more often than not, especially in the case when it comes to clips. You know, when people are more focused on what I'm physically doing on camera than listening to my arguments. Do we like it? Do we hate it? Do we love it? I don't necessarily care, but post your opinions anyways. I want to hear what your reactions are. Also, as I was saying, my content experience. I've been noticing and paying attention to the fact that from Into the Unjust, it became very obvious that what Helldivers was doing was trying to find ways to give people the ability to complain about what was going on in the video game. From the original drop on September 6th last year, in the last fiscal quarter, in quarter 4, it was very obvious that people were just bitching and whining and complaining about broken states of video gameplay content, as one of the first things that was obvious was about the unbalanced state and the undriven state of the Dragon Roach and of the general content of the Rupture Strain on Yalavar, or not Yalavar, but the other planet in question that it sounds like it, amongst the Bug Swarm. We have since liberated that planet, with much complaining about how it was busted and broken, despite not realizing that the Predator Strain on that planet was a lot more dangerous than anything the Rupture Strain did. Oshane, thank you. But then, when they started gearing up and pivoting towards the changes to the planetary state on the automaton front, it was very obvious to me that they were about to do a new content push to the automatons. And I did not expect for the Autons to bring in the cyborgs, but they did. And with it, and the two, because I was surprised by this, and I should have seen it coming sooner, but it only made sense when they started doing all that shit leading up to the reveal on the 9th. When they started adding not one, but 2 war bonds, one for direct confrontation and another for C4, 6 sticks of C4, it became very obvious to me, oh, they're about to fucking launch a war on Cyberstan. And here we are now. Like, I would have thought it would have taken a lot longer. Because what made it very clear to me that we were going to Cyberstan was that we were locking down both the eastern, the western, and the northern fronts of the automaton line. Like, every single time we had to fight on the main stage, it was pretty obvious with the magma planets that they were going to do this. And no, I was not playing back then, because that was when I was in the middle of 0.4 inside of Path of Exile 2. But I was paying attention, guest. I mean, if you want to say it in terms of those that are already here, who weren't there when they started doing the magma planets, because I'm going to put this on camera, it was pretty obvious to me, but I was like, we're going to get there in the middle of the year, not where we are right now. Because it sounds like an obvious take if you forget the context. Okay? Helldiver Companion. And give me the Galactic Table. My chest hurts. I mean, yes, but how many people actually read Democracy Officer, Gus? That's the real problem. Okay, so. From my viewpoint, back when we were dealing with the constant back failures between Galavar, Yogg-Saroth, Kellerel, Klossa, and all this shit that went all the way to Miditoria, it was very obvious, based on how the lines were drawn, especially with the fact that these motherfuckers decided to glass Penta of all places, it was pretty obvious to me when we were on this line, all the way back while we were still inside of the content that was connected to the dive of Into the Unjust, that we were going to be dealing with this, because we haven't been put anywhere nearby dealing with the original Western, Eastern, and Northern Front Pass since this face-off with Chopessa 4. This entire line, this entire section, I would have expected an all-out breakout in these sectors, but they did not do that. We slowly started retaking all this shit. So, from as far back as Mevalon Creek and I guess the connection of Tibet, all the way through here, I would have expected this to be a full court press push, with us having to take down one of these direct lines to secure through here, to then possibly push our way into Cyberstan the hard way, with connecting lines on the backside of these sectors, from Venomax Prime, connecting to Zosma, connecting X-45, that would have required us to basically contain the cyborgs and the automatons before they could somehow, one, make a blind line to Super Earth and break containment, while at the same time forcing us to fight a two-front fight between their home planet and defending our home planet. That's what I expected. That did not happen, though. That's what I expected, but it did not happen. Instead, they immediately chose not to push the Poply line, which is what kicked off the Great Reclamation, and instead, this shit happened. And then we found ourselves on the magma planets, and we fought our way all the way here, and the shit that happened on Merak happened on Merak, and now, Cyberstan. And whatever bullshit regimen of the cyborgs is about to go to Murga. Like, this is what's happened versus what could have happened. I would have thought it would have kicked off with Minatoria, and maybe in many ways it did, because of us having to resecure the details on this planet, because of the data center, and then also because of the other shit that is important to these planets, namely Clarel and the Forge, and Mastia and the fucking the citizen surveillance, and all the other shit throughout these sectors. Ironically, there's not a lot of things inside of the automaton sector that are important for construction, compared to Turing and Fenrir 3. And I guess now Oshani. Or, excuse me, Osha Une. Regardless, that's what I thought was going to happen. But it did not. That's all I'm trying to communicate here. Glaros are not important since the Star of Peace had been mentioned. Yes, because they really decided to push that content line around the Star of Peace, which really was the nexus point to getting people involved in the content. It was what it was. Honestly, I feel like it was a test and rollout to try and get people customized and accustomed to using the new gear and the new material. But without having physically been there myself, I can't be sure. I can only go off of the opinion of the people who were, which means more or less everybody who's involved in the Hug Divers. So unless you, Lamini, and Moon have something to say about it, or anybody else for that matter, it really just is just a question of, how many people can actually play the game together as a group, instead of individually like they're playing their own lives. Like, even the fact that they have giant fucking counters counting down how many reinforcements it's going to take to invade Cyberstan, I feel like we're very much in the please start playing the video game like you're playing an actual onboard campaign, for what it's worth. My forehead's itchy. Anyways. Between this and all of the other content pushes I'm doing right now, I think the next patch for Exile 2 is going to drop sometime around ExileCon. Probably. Well, actually, I don't think it's going to take that long. But the drop for Last of the Druids was what, December? Yes. It dropped December, January, February, March, probably April, somewhere like that. So right now, in between those, since my joining to the Second Win Private League, where I was then accosted and then robbed of an opportunity to win $1,200. We're in between content. So between this and Helldivers, there is a possibility that I'm going to open up a content line for the community to get into another rotation of Once Human. It's probably just going to be an in-house choice instead of trying to link up with other content creators, since they're in between their own content and stuff. We could possibly look into it. I don't know if it's going to happen. We're going to start with getting in-house. Alright? In-house is what we're going to start with. So, on that conversation, we still have the days of movie nights, right? I'm going to start floating the idea of what that's going to look like properly, because we still are like 2 movie nights before we're properly caught up with everything else. But last week, which is to say this week, I count Sunday as the start of a new week, and I count Saturday as the end of the last week. This week, we tried adding a second game night to our rotation. Regularly, our Discord gaming night is always on Thursday. We started this tradition in the back half of December last year as a way to get people in the community playing together. Because originally, the timeline was I wanted to put together a server crossover environment where everybody who was inside of my Discord and everybody who was inside of my audience and every creator who was a part of my connected friendship and my connected networks of intermingling users could come together on a piece of content to basically talk about how they got to meet each other, how they ended up meeting me, and how that ended up growing a friendship and connections and talking about a bunch of other shit and a bunch of funny stories and shit and whatever. That fell through completely. So, what clearly needed to happen is that we needed to create a community day where people actually start talking to each other and interacting with each other and getting to know each other. Because effectively, I was doing it out of nothing. Like, it came up, I set it up, but holidays, right? Multiple people with their own plans. Ergo was born the Discord Gaming Night on Thursdays starting at 4 p.m. Because that's about right for most people who are grown adults to come out of work, since we're a 18 plus audience, and then be able to sign in and join playing whatever game. Right now, that has been working graciously, but what I've noticed, because of the people that I cross over with in these multitudes of communities, is that they overbook themselves in their own content. They book way too much shit. So they run out of days where they're not ever able to make it, because they're always distracted. They overplan, they overpromise, they underperform, and then they feel bad about it. So I decided we're going to make an extra day. Last week, we tried Thursday, Friday. This week, we're going to try Wednesday, Thursday. The attendance on Friday was not very good. It was mostly myself and Master Wolf. The attendance on Thursday is pretty much normal. No cam? Not right now, Schnitzel. We're trying out this new thing, which is namely this PNG shit. Also, I'm lazy, and the light outside is not in a position I want it to be for my backlit camera, and I do not want to turn the overhead light on. It hurts my eyes. Anyways, last week we tried Thursday, Friday. This week we're going to try Wednesday, Thursday. Whichever rotation has the higher attendance is going to win. If both attendances end up just being equal, I make the final decision myself based on what I think is best for the rotation. Because on top of the gaming night rotations, I'm going to be instituting probably a weekly movie night day. This also includes using the form for presentation. The inside movie night form that we use for people's decisions and choices on what we're going to watch. If people don't use the submission form, I decide the movies. If people don't come into the Discord gaming nights with an idea of what it is they want to play, or they don't have the available game that would be playable, I'm going to base it on the tradition that we already established. The tradition that we've already established for gaming night has been Golf with Your Friends, Eternal Return, because the game is free, and Toontown Online, as well as Mabby No Guy Professional. And possibly maybe even Drift City Remastered. We just haven't done Drift City Remastered because, despite also being free, you know, I can only ask you to play so many video games at once. I would love to do things like adding Helldivers to the rotation or adding Marvel Rivals to the rotation, but unfortunately some people in the Discord do not have the computer space, the memory space, or even the computer power to run these video games. And I don't want people to be left out. Parallel play has always been encouraged, but the entire point is, how do you get to play with other people if you will not come in because, man, I don't want to play that stuff. Do it anyways. So, I am no longer asking. With a gentle and velvet but iron glove, I graciously, amongst you, as your cult leader of the Negrohood HOA, am institutionalizing forced compliance. As graciously as one must. Because it's for your own good. You talk to more people, you get to know each other more, you're going to start playing more video games. Because the entire point is that these gaming nights don't always have to be filmed and put on camera. I know that there are some people in my own audience that have reservations about being on a camera or being on a high mic. So, You should be able to play with each other without necessarily having it broadcasted. That involves community mods, of which we have, and users that have either shown the willingness or the interest in being community mods, bringing things together and hosting these events, so that I can actually be free to not only record it for you, but should it be of interest that we do something in-house, you have the room to do that. Flexibility is the name of the game here. Flexibility. Like some of you guys are just going through it, right? Like Struggler, he's almost always working. I don't know what Extra Crusher does, but Extra Crusher's probably also working too. He spends a lot of time doing his job. Boomer's buying a house and having to move, etc., 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 etc. Some of us, we know that it's a time zone problem. All of those people have reasons. The rest of you don't have reasons. In many cases, it's a choice. And that's fine. You're allowed to make your choices. But don't say, damn, Carl, it'd be really cool if you could do this thing. Don't come to me and say, damn, Carl, I really would like to play this video game. And when I set aside the time for it, we decide the day, you vote on the day even. We decide the day, we decide the time, we vote on the time, we vote on the itinerary, and you don't show up. Don't come to me and say, damn, Carl, why is it we don't do this, and this? Because I'm going to start, again, I'm no longer holding back. I'm going to be very fucking blunt. The reason it's not happening is because you didn't come up. The reason it didn't happen is because you didn't show up. It's the same thing with content. Damn, Carl, why is it you don't cover this thing that I covered? I don't know. It's probably because it's not in my interest. Or you didn't present it to me in a way that made it interesting for me to talk about. And or, this thing that you wanted to do, I said I would do it for this amount, and you didn't do that. It's very simple. It's very easy. It's got simple follow-through. This is how I've always operated. So anyways, with that being said, gaming night, Thursday, secondary gaming night, Friday or Wednesday. Attendance decides. The attendance of Friday was low, so if the attendance of Wednesday is high, or is better for the people who are coming through, then that gets established. If it instead is the case that Friday is better, then Friday gets established. If both nights were pretty much equal, it's up to my choice and I decide which one is which. And then also on Wednesdays, we'll probably have a standardized movie night. It's not probably going to be Monday, because Monday is the first day of the week where I've got plenty of shit to do, as I always do throughout the week, as I work from home as caretaker. Tuesday, that's usually Star's first day off in the week. I spend time with her that day. So Wednesday's about right. So do not be surprised if the second gaming night becomes Friday and Wednesday becomes the standardized weekly movie night. Right now, the rotation is that I do movie matinees based on my feel. Namely, if I have content that I'm going through. I've been watching The Pit. I've been watching Starfleet Academy and wanting to claw my fucking eyes out. I'm about to do a movie matinee where I'm going to be looking at Wonder Man as a presentation to the Discord, as well as some shit that has to do with Power Rangers. And then also probably even watch parties for the new series being produced by Toei, which is the Gavan Infinity Project. So, on top of catching up on weekly content and weekly streams, as well as the editing that I'm still doing that keeps going out very slowly, now since I've been able to properly reset my sleep schedule so that I'm not being kept up until 6 o'clock, and then forced to take a day nap sometime between 12 and 3, only for me to sleep all the way through till 4:30. It should put things on a standard regimen and rotation. And with a weekly, or rather a semi-frequent paycheck, it means that I'll have the ability to then possibly take on either a new editor or find the time to edit myself, which then leads directly into you having regular uploads outside of the normal uploads I'd regularly be doing. So when I work on long-form content that then gets edited over time, there will be more topical news in the form of videos. I already do this with things on TikTok, but from what I've seen in the algorithm, that content does not get consumed as often as everything else does. But I'm putting up shit that I like because it's what gets me engaged. Same thing with what people present me. So, for example, we'll be looking into that black cult that I was talked about. And we'll also probably be doing a watch party for the Pod Awful presentation for Emily Yukis's appearance. So if you're not already a member of the Discord, join the Discord. Become a member of the Neighborhood HOA. Earn your timeshare. And when you get access to the Printing Press Express, post. So to demonstrate what I mean by that, as has been the case inside of my audience since forever, when I redesigned the Discord last year, there is a section of the Discord called the Printing Press Express. Inside of here is all of the pieces of content that get brought to my attention or that I bring to your attention when you post here. It has tags. It has systems. As you post here, I look over them, and if it interests me, I cover it. If it doesn't interest me, I don't cover it. So last week, I covered things like slopulism. I posted that there is an image mirror for the Jeffrey Epstein emails in a thing called the J-mails. There was a segment put together for Isaiah Martin for Surrounded that I'm going to probably have to do a separate live stream for. The same way I'm going to have to do for the Black Nationalist, for the Zamanist Consortium, as well as videos about Jordan Peterson's Fall from Grace, Aiden's newest content on weaponized empathy, the Erica Cook VOD from Abra Preach, videos from Deadwing Dork. This debate that we're going to be dissecting today, alongside a bunch of other content, things that came from the now deleted account of Josh Schobel, who was apparently, who was a developer on Highguard, who basically was mogged off the internet by people telling him he's a retard, as well as a bunch of other shit. Oh, there's your restore button thing. Now I know where I'm looking for a struggle bus. I'll look at this later, after the broadcast. But in this section of my Discord, this is a place you can post in when you're at the median level. The median level is basically the rank of Mendigo Kiva. To get this rank, as well as all ranks, when you start out at the level of a neophyte, seen here, is attendance to content. Assuming people read my rules, which I just assume some people don't, any and all access to parts of the server is at the mercy of time requirement and socialization. I have always ranked people up based on involvement. That's why I push so hard for being involved. If you don't involve yourself in the Discord, and if you don't show up to content, then it tells me that you don't pay attention to material. So if you say, I don't know what's going on, there's a good chance it's because you haven't been reading the Discord. I make announcements there. The posts get posted there. Hell, even almost all of the content announcements get announced there, including today's broadcast, as well as what it should have been the broadcast for, each Discord gaming night, whenever we go live. Because not only is that posted there, it's also posted in the lowest part of the server, in places like Community Group Gaming, Movie Nights, and then the section for people who are new joiners, which is the Poop Shoot, as well as the Collard Bean Discord. Once you get out of this section, which is basically the welcoming stage, you get into the Afro Parlor, which at base level requires that second tier. Or at least Neophyte, actually. No, I might be wrong on that. It might just be the second level. Getting to that second level also encourages you access to the current event station, where all the shit can be found. When I go through your content, I then make content based on that material. There's one for people that are a part of the Discord. There's another one that is direct line of attention to me, based on people that are either moderators or high power users that we call members of the UNCF, the United Negro Carl Foundation. Because a Carl is a terrible thing to waste. I cannot stress this enough. If I haven't heard or seen something that you claim you've posted somewhere, the reason why is because I'm looking at the Discord. We do have crossover with Geistwin, and Geistwin did make a subreddit, but I don't expect you all to go to the Geistwin subreddit. If we ever eventually get the moderation staff to make a single-player Carl subreddit, I'm more than likely still going to be looking at the Discord. It is the most insular place where I collate and I tally information, because I don't look at shit without a link. You don't know who what is. Geistwin is a side server made by Ashira Drake and managed by other members of DevCord, including myself. Izuchi. That thing. Yeah, Geistwin. It's another server. Is this server right here. This server was made by members that were basically a splinter of DevCord. They do events over here as well. Things like Gundam Night, Movie Night, Weekly Movie Night, content put together for whatever reason, Variety Night, a secondary Variety Night. But yes, anyways, if you want the ability to be involved in things like the gaming night, the movie, well, both gaming nights, the movie night, any content that's happening in the Discord and server, especially if it's something that I literally can't put on camera because it would get the stream banned, you need to join and post in the Discord. If you want to bring things to my attention and you're somebody who doesn't want to necessarily give me money, you need to post in the Discord. I'm going to probably have to repeat this every so often. Please join the Discord. Please join the Discord so I don't have to feel like I'm nagging people for doing something that should be very logical and very simple. Anyways, with that put to the side, and with the conversation about Helldivers thoroughly discussed, at least in my personal take, let us get into today's content. Again, should you have something you wish to call in about the show for, if you have something you want to push back on, if you think I'm an asshole and I shouldn't be allowed to talk about these things, call in. Put your money and your wallet and your time where your mouth is, and let's talk about it. Click the link that is pinned in all of the chat rooms where all Carl and Carl related accessories can be sold, and tell me what's good. If not, moving forward, let us get into the content. First up, since he deleted the account, we're going to have to do this through my copy link. Let's talk about Highguard again. Wild Light Studios. Wild Light Studios. We have all dealt with the retardation that came at the hands of deciding that spending money on shit that isn't important is of the utmost stupidity. However, despite this chance, despite this interest, despite any of the shit a person could look into, a member of their staff decided they wanted to talk endless shit to the gamer after their boss said, "It doesn't matter who plays our video game, it just matters who enjoys our content," before immediately slashing 90% of the staff because they can't pay an $880,000 payroll share. He then chose to go onto X, where he tried to blame the gamers, only for him to resolutely delete his account because he couldn't take pushback, because he's a bitch. However, we archived the article written by Josh Chabelle, known as Joshy Poo, and let's discuss it before we then discuss the content based on the failure of Highguard developers from Decembro, as this is an extension of the same content that I was covering this week. Reflecting on shipping my first game, Highguard. Apologies for the length, been wanting to say this for a while. The day leading to the Game Awards 2025 was amongst the most exciting of my life. After 2.5 years of passionately working on Highguard, we were ready to reveal it to the world. The future seems bright. Everyone I knew who had any connection to the gamer team had the same sentiments. This is lightning in a bottle. I trust this team wholeheartedly. If there's one project nobody in the industry was worried will fail, it's yours. This has a mainstream hit written all over it. There's no way this would flop. I could play this all day. The first problem here is that you thought that you wouldn't actually fail. The second problem here, anyone I knew that had any connection to the team or the project. You didn't ask your players. You didn't ask your playtesters. You asked the industry. And the industry blew hot smoke up your ass. And you were surprised. You were taken aback. You were caught off guard by the rejection of the gamers. You know, the only way that you can truly be caught off guard by the rejection of the demographic of the marketplace you're trying to sell to is if you actively aren't listening to that marketplace. It's like saying that you'd be taken surprised and that you didn't expect the failure, when literally your job is to actually expect failure. That's why you have demographic markets. Need my cough drops. They spilled into my fucking plastic bag, so now I have to pull them out the bag one at a time. It is literally your job to talk to your player base and to get their feelings on the matter concerning your content. You did not do that. You ignored the demographic of people who would be playing your video game. And you were then surprised the way that a woman is surprised that she's being sexually assaulted in a men's prison when she walked in completely naked with no clothes with a sign that says, "I am free use." There is no way that you can be surprised by this kind of expectation any more than any of us would be taken aback and surprised by an unexpected dick in the ass. And it's because you didn't want to listen to what we were being told. But don't worry. We'll talk about that when we get there. Let's keep reading. The internal pre-reveal feedback, even from unbiased sources, was quite positive, and where it was negative, it was constructive, and often actionable. People who played the game, including us, had a blast. And since we were an independent, self-published studio built with royalties in mind, many of us were hoping this would be the final thing, who would finally be the thing that broke the millennial financial curse. But then the trailer came out, and it was all downhill from there. Content creators love to point out the bias in folk who give positive previews after being flown out for an event. Pause. When you bring people in and you say, "Hi, I'm X, and I'm here to promote Y," I immediately discount your opinion. Because it's not an opinion of a person who was not given the opportunity to talk about your video game from an unbiased source. Unbiased means I didn't have to be told. I didn't have to be paid. I didn't have to choose to include or exclude what I was being told or saying. This is something that we talked about on my appearance on the Real Nigga Hours, hosted by one of our moderators of the Discord, Bloodia. You did basically the inverse of the argument people are doing right now about eugenics. And both sides of those arguments are wrong. Right? On one hand, you want me to listen to your shill marketers, and you expect me to believe that they're an unbiased source when you literally gave them preferential treatment. Unless you show me the contract that you had them sign, or lack thereof, that says they're allowed to trash your video game if they see fit to give it constructive criticism, I don't believe you. Because it screams Access Media. Because it is Access Media. You bring them in, they give a positive review, and you quite literally are borrowing their goodwill as an expectation and as a forward loss leader step to bring people in the door. So, like we talked about on Real Nigga Hours, this was effectively the I couldn't pay these negative people $1,000 to change their negative opinion response from people like Maximilian Dude. When a company like Capcom brings in literally Kenny Omega, the Spear Hunter, which is to say that transgender person who always has the black hair bob cut, and Maximilian Dude, along with one of their voice actresses, the one for Lady Dimitrescu, to basically sex up and or ham up a commercial promoting sales towards Capcom discounted games as much as the games in question that they're promoting, I expect that I'm being sold something. A bill of goods, an opinion, an insight. Something that didn't come from a normal consumer who has no agenda pushed to me. If I was myself removed from my own being, I would be looking at Carl, expecting Carl to have an opinion that came solely from Carl. If Carl works with the company, which I already do, or rather, utilizes a service, such as Daredrop, as I did multiple times with various games that I have done on camera with the rest of you, it is part of my expectation that if I'm covering that content, I have to say, this is something that I was given a free key for as a part of this service. However, as I've done multiple times, both with my review of things such as Macross Shooting Insight, as I've done with Avowed, as I've done with Section 13, every time I have done something with that, there was never an expectation of me to say, I am being given this in expectation that I give them a positive review. No, actually. What I am given is a game, and they say, do these challenges. Whatever you do with the content is your content. Notice how I made a good review. Or rather, not even a good review. Notice how I made a recap of my gameplay session of Section 13. And that I had plans to do so for Avowed, but then Avowed literally was broken. And then we were told in the last quarter of last year, don't play the game again until we fix these internal bugs. There's an actual security risk that your computer could be exposed to hacks because of something involved with NVIDIA GeForce. Night and day difference, dude. Night and day difference. Because on one hand, that's the argument being made towards Mind's Eye. That's the argument being made towards Highguard. On the other side, you've got the creator of Nugenics, Ed McMullen, the lead of Nicholas, that made a game that is basically Into the Breach, combined with a bunch of other mechanics of at least 4 different roguelikes, and it makes back its money. And he's promoting people playing the game, but he's not doing it because they have the right ideology. He's doing it because they're playing the content. And it's various people that comes from various different walks of life. These two things are different. They're not the same. One is, hey, look, this person's having a lot of fun playing your video game. You might like it too. The other one is, hey, this person is a shill. They were given this opportunity to shill to you. Take everything they say with a grain of salt. So when you say content creators love to point out the bias in people who give positive previews after being flown out to an event, yes, of course we would. It doesn't matter if you say behind that, but they ignore that they have negative leading content that gets 10 times the engagement of the positive. It's an attention economy. It's an attention economy. It's an attention economy. It's an attention economy. but negative views get more attention. No, real views get more attention. These people don't have soul. I wonder what's going to pull more attention between a 90-10 split. The person who has a personality or the person who's a fucking market chill? What's going to get engaged with more? I digress. Ouch. I got a hair tingle. I digress. Content creators love to point out the bias in folks who give positive reviews after being flown onto an event, but ignore the fact that when their negative leading content gets 10 times the engagement of the positive, they've got just as much incentive to lead into a disingenuous direction, whether consciously or not. Cap, hate, cope, seethe, mauled. Hate, seethe, mauled, cope. No, actually. If a person lies about content that doesn't exist in the game, and they say, oh, it's just my interpretation, that actually means that person's opinion is going to be discounted, because they're not being honest and truthful. There's a discourse going around right now, where there's a person who claims that Shrek is a focused story about how you cannot make an ogre into a man, but a man can make an ogre out of a woman. Putting a top-down classist view and capitalist view on a story that is literally about loving yourself. If you watch Shrek and you tell me, actually, Shrek's entire plan from the first film once he met Fiona was he was always going to baby trap her, what else do I say than call you a retard? There's no way we can play the same video game, and you just lie to my face, and you expect me to be like, oh yeah, bro, that's totally right. You know those meteor grifters are never... what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? What the fuck is actually wrong with you? Their hate started immediately. In addition to dogpiling on the trailer, I personally came under fire due to my naivete on Twitter, which almost all now of my former coworkers have learned to avoid during their previous game launches. Right here. This is the reason why your game failed. This right here is the reason why your game failed. You think that non-stop toxic positivity is the same thing as real opinions. Tell me I'm wrong. You think toxic positivity are real opinions. And anything that doesn't kiss your asshole must be a toxic troll. This is why your game died. Again, we'll talk about that when we get there. After setting my Twitter account to private, bitch made, to protect my sanity, many content creators made videos and posts about me and my cowardice, amassing millions of views and inadvertently sending hundreds of angry gamers into my replies. They laughed at me for being proud of the game, told me to get out the McDonald's applications, and mocked me for listing having autism in my bio, which seems to be evidence that the game would be woke trash. All of this was emotionally taxing. Alright. Some of you are not about to like me, because I'm about to defend this man slightly. You work in the games industry. You chose to set your account to private. This is seen as an admittance that you can't be able to argue with opinions and can't argue with attitudes. People are going to point out this cowardice, because it is cowardice, and they will make replies, they will make content, they will make material talking about what you did. I don't have to send people into your replies to do that. By talking about you right now, after you've deleted your account, am I a part of this gaggle of people? No. But guess what I am? I'm a critic. It is not in your interest, if you want to see improvement, that you ignore all opinions that you don't like because you decided the people came from the wrong groups and the wrong sources. Therefore, nothing they have to say is valuable to you, because if it was from the right people, they'd know how to do it correctly, air quote. That is a lie. That is cope. You're fucking around. However, being proud of your video game should overcome any amount of mockery. If you believe in your content, it doesn't matter if they're going to say that you're going to get out the McDonald's applications. Because you're going to make tons of buku dollars, right? You trust your content, right? That's what you said. You said this game could never flop. It's lightning in a bottle. And then, if they mock you for having autism, and they say this is proof that the game would be woke trash, those people's opinions don't matter. It wouldn't matter if you locked your account. Mutant block exists as a function. Oh, we eating? I mean, I know on my point. I know my comment 8, but what are we eating, Buster? Because all I'm doing is I'm sucking on some fucking cough drops. I ran out of liquid cough drops the other day, so when we were out yesterday, I had to buy cough drops. Pizza? Damn, cool. I wish I had pizza to eat on. I don't get my next paycheck until the 20th. Or rather, I should say till Friday. Yeah, the 20th. The 21st? I don't remember what day Friday is this week. But no, you're not distracting me. It's fine. But if people come into you and they give no real criticism of the video game, but they're just harassing you and other developers for having whatever you chose to put in your bio, certainly there are ways that people can antagonize people for attacking things in the bio. But things in your bio are not a reflection of your video game. You can easily throw away those arguments, because if they're going to call your game woke trash just off of that alone without actually having consumed it, their opinions don't matter. They have to consume the shit in order to talk about the shit. This is the material concert of when it comes to criticism. You have to see it, you gotta look at it, you gotta be able to understand it in order for you to talk about it. If you choose, like I did, not to play the video game, you need to see an unfiltered, unbiased example of somebody playing the video game in order to come away with your opinion. Is it going to be stronger if you play it yourself? Absolutely. But do you have to? No. But if you see the material inside of it through somebody else as a proper proxy, who does so in an unbiased, unfiltered way, like I did and will do for various games and various content, then it means that unless they came from that source, if they just attack you because, you have autism, that means your game's woke, you can tell them to lick your nuts. And I will stand with you and dab on them niggas and tell them to lick your nuts. And to open that mouth up, get ready for the cockney sandwich, because they have nothing to say to you otherwise. There is much constructive criticism that has been said about Highguard's trailer, marketing, and launch, but I don't think it's my place to commentate on that. Yes, it is. You're literally a developer. It is literally your place to do it. It is literally your place to be able to comment on it, because you worked on the game. You are the only person who can be able to address any of those common concerns from those people. You might not be the head of the creative, thus the one who makes the final decision, but you quite literally do have the ability to view those questions. This is you making an excuse for yourself. I also don't think there's any way to know whether the launch would have fared better or worse without the massive spotlight that was thrown onto us in response to the Game Awards placement, but we never got the chance. Actually, no. We definitively know that it would have been the case example, and I'm going to break down to you how. It's 3 easy steps. You tell Jeffrey, no! And you stealth drop the game in early access as a alpha test. Step 1, tell Jeff Keighley no. Step 2, shadow drop as an alpha test. And make it clear, this is not final decisive content of the game's development in its final form. The game is evolving. When people give feedback, it will directly affect the game. So, that means what they're doing right now with Deadlocked, where you have thousands of people who keep commenting on the fact that this game is so good, and they keep making guides and updates about patch states when the game's not physically accessible to the public. Same thing. They make very clear the game is still in development and that it is only available to be played by people inviting others to the playtest. Step 3. Hit my microphone. Step 3. After you've done all the necessary steps to make sure you got everything exactly the way you want it, you reveal the game when you have developed the modes that will make it good after you've taken in all the available criticism that is good, that affects the game positively. Not picking and choosing what you decided you wanted to hear, but taking in the advice that makes the game good. For example, why the fuck would you think you need to have maps as big as fucking Halo, with mounts involved, and you not have a 5-on-5 game mode? Why did you think you needed to have 3-on-3? You could argumentatively say that the ranked mode, should Highguard ever get that far, could be 3-on-3. But 5-on-5 should have been the standard. Clearly it plays better. Clearly it invites and creates a lot more chaos and a lot more fun because of said chaos. Do you need to have a game design that makes it function like pieces and parts of Apex Legends alongside pieces and parts of every other hero shooter and every other FPS shooter in the battle arena? Probably not, no. But if you're going to have all those things, and if you're going to put in all that content, and you're going to put in all that space, and you're going to put in all these different pieces of mechanics, like carrying a shield breaker shield to install in a wall, so that you can then have a raid session where you're trying to plant bombs on 3 to 4 points to then have the chance to win a match, then you should probably have as much chaos as possible, and have up to 5 people defending and 5 people attacking. Because what you guys did was you went and you opened yourself completely open to the public with an announcement at the end of the season with something that was expected for another video game entirely, then getting you mobbed on by the entire world when over 100,000 players dropped retention 95% on the first week. That's a staggering number, dude. 95% of the people said, nah, your game sucks. You weren't attacked by the chuds. You weren't attacked by the bad people. You weren't attacked by incels. You were told your game sucks by the world. There's no coping about that, dude. And then, insult to injury, your developer, your lead developer, your head of creative says it doesn't matter. No, actually, no, worse than that. Your fucking president of your company says it doesn't matter what you people say. It matters that the right people had the right opinions. And then you got slashed from the company. Actually, he might not have been slashed from the company. He might be one of the ones that survived. But there are plenty of people who got slashed from the company. What that tells me is that they had a lot more reason to demonstrate why you would never get the chance. Because your antics and your actions led to the outcome you got. But again, we'll talk more about that part when we get there. We were turned into a joke from minute one, largely due to false assumptions about $1 million ad placement, which even prominent journalists soon began to state as a fact. Within minutes, it was decided. The game was DOA and creators had free rage bait content for a month. Nah, we have more than rage bait content for a month, if we're being serious. We have rage bait content for the entirety of your project until your project goes to full weight of Concord. Right now, you're in maintenance mode. But the existence of your content demonstrates a point that we've been saying multiple times. Nobody wants these video games. We do not need live service battle arena action. We want content that allows us to feel like we are unexpectedly falling in love with a general classic, which is what people have currently done with things like Mugenics. You see, just like how we would all be unexpected and we would be taken aback and taken by surprise by an unexpected cock on our ass, unless you're a gay man, players want to be in a place where they are available and open to fall in love with a new content or fall into a honeymoon phase with a new piece of material, like falling in love with a new person. That's the difference, you see. Very rarely, very, very rarely do people actually know what they want. Legitimately knowing what they want and then seeking it out. Because when they do that, it means they're already playing the video games they intended to play. And then with all those little meticulous things they do in their day, all those meticulous pieces of stuff that they do, that they're consuming, what you then invite them to do is you provide them the opportunity upon which they can then learn about content that you're currently doing. Which gives them the ability to be a part of the process and be a part of the people included in the conversation. So, when Eugenics jumped on the scene this week, buried Reloaded, made jokes how bad a failure Highguard was, compared to its meteoric rise and success, and all the other news stories that were important because of its coverage, it was definitively the case of them finding a new video game to take their time up with. Just as much as people started dipping off your game the second there was something for them to find out about in Helldivers 2. Because new content, new thing, new toy, period. Your game failed at that. Every one of our videos on social media got downvoted to hell. Comment sections flooded with copy-paste memes such as Concord 2, because your game is Concord 2. This week, we received over 14k review bombs from users with less than an hour of playtime. Many didn't even finish the required tutorial. Bringing up X2KO is not going to help you in this argument, but we're going to talk about that at the end of that sentence. In discussions online about Highguard, Concord, 2XKO, and such, it is often pointed out by gamers that devs like to blame gamers for their failures, and that's silly. As if gamers have no power, but they do. They have a lot of it. I'm not saying our failure is purely the fault of the gamer culture, and that games should have certainly thrived without the negative discourse, but it absolutely played a role. All projects are the whim of consumers, and the consumers put absurd amounts of effort into slandering Highguard, and it worked. Here's another reason why you failed. Oh my god, you consumers, you're the reason the game didn't work. You're not the only factor, but you definitely played into it. Oh, I'm sorry, are you complaining about word of mouth? Your game sucked? So now you're blaming people for using their word of mouth about your game sucking? Wah! 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 Suck my cock! Holy... Suck my cock! So goddamn fast! Yeah, that's a part of the goddamn process, bro. It's called word of mouth for a reason. If I play your game, and your game sucks, and I tell 5 friends your game sucks, and they're like, no, Carl, listen, there's no way you could be that right, bro. Just give it a chance. And I tell them, okay, play it yourself. Try it, and see if I'm wrong, and those 5 people then test it themselves, or they show a recording of what I was experiencing on camera, and they show it to 5 of their friends. That's 11 people who know your game suck. Because they'll say, oh wow, I didn't want to take his word for it, but damn, the game actually does suck. And if those 5 people show somebody else, that's 16 people. 1 plus 15. Actually, no, that's wrong. Factorialization. I show one person, one person, show 5 people. That's 6. Then those 5 times 5, 25, 26. So actually, from 25 to 100. Factorialization. I can't do small math. I'm out. Anyways. 26 people now know your game suck. Then, when another 5 people show them, that's another 26 people who know your game suck. Oh wow, you're so surprised that out of 100,000 players, 95,000 of them said your game sucked across various languages and generational barriers. Even game journalists agreed your game sucked. The positive opinion of people who said it would never break, lightning in a bottle. And suddenly your reality was shattered the moment your fallacious fantasy land was shattered the moment it touched reality. And instead of saying, well, damn, I guess there were some things that we didn't consider, your immediate reach to cope is the developing process was hard and gamers didn't take time. You're not entitled to me finishing your tutorial. I do not have to finish your content. I do not have to play your game for a specific period of time in order for my opinion to be valid, if I touched the content and experienced it wholesomely. You don't get to come to me as a consumer and say, how dare you not finish this burger, sir? Sir, this burger is half-cooked, raw, and it was made on moldy bread. I don't want to eat any more of it. But how do you know it's good if you don't finish the whole moldy bread, lukewarm leukemia sandwich? No, fuck you. Here's another reason why you failed. Many of Wildlight's former devs will now be forced to assimilate back into the actual corporate industry many gamers accuse Wildlight of being a part of. Now, every time someone thinks about leaving the golden handcuffs behind in order of making a new multiplayer game the indie way, they'll say, but remember how gamers didn't even give Wildlight a chance. Soon, if the pattern continues, innovation will be on life support. All that will be left is corporations in the multiplayer space. That's not how that works either. Actually, it's not a case of golden handcuffs. You can literally just go make something of your own and do it without industry bloat. You could become a real indie studio that's not being held up by Fortune 500 companies and industrial shareholders and ESG scores and social impact blank checks. You could just make something. And you could make something with your soul in it. And then, if you make something with your soul in it, and it's good, guess what? Word of mouth means that you'll live. You too could make something like Mugenics and make your profit back in 3 hours of selling the game on day one, in week one. You're not entitled to hit critical mass off of people paying for the NFTs and the non-stop microtransaction skins that you are offering in-game right now as a part of your opening bundle, when you haven't even worked out your year-long, that's right, year-long roadmap of all the changes you were going to make. Because you thought that you were entitled to getting a chance to release a piece of shit, dog shit game on week one, and we're gonna work on it and improve it over time as a justification and excuse to get across the goddamn hill. No, actually. No, you're not gonna. Even if Highguard had a rocky launch, which you could have avoided if you'd used your brain cells, our independent, self-published, dev-led studio full of passionate people who have, quote, the right opinions, and you said everybody else had the wrong opinions, just trying to make a game with zero AI, zero corporate insight, deserve better than this. First off, try putting this together without using buzzwords. I don't care if you're independent and self-published. I don't care if you're a developer-led studio full of passionate people putting fun first. I don't care if you made the game with zero AI and zero corporate oversight, making the game by committee. You turned out a bad product, and then you blamed the customer consumer for the fact that your game sucked. No amount of buzzwords undoes the damage you just did. You said the reason the game is bad is because you guys didn't give it a chance. Despite the fact over 95% of the player base gave it a chance and said, nah, I'm good. We deserve the bare minimum of not having our downfall be gleefully manifested. This is just as retarded and dumb as the conversation that was at the beginning of today's thumbnail for the broadcast. If I can go pull up that history post. Where's that post? Where's that post? Where's that post? I'm trying to find it. Ugh. I just find it the hard way. Here it is. This retarded shit from the Black Okage. Read, and I quote directly. Nigga, shut your industry coon ass up.
Saving this tweet, just in case Marathon does fail, has proved that some were waiting and rooting for its failure before ever touching it. When things go bad, folks love to revise history like they weren't asking for the outcome. This new trend is beyond weird. The same gamers who claim it's nothing to play. Dogpiling on everything now. You guys are just miserable.
Concord, a game nobody asked for. Highguard, a game nobody asked for. The revisation of Marathon from a single-player game to a live-action multiplayer game. Something nobody asked for. With bad design decisions, like a character class that has a stealth shield that will be renewed upon killing a character, leading to unbalanced gameplay. Horizon Huntress Gathering. A game that nobody fucking asked for from the Horizon Zero Dawn universe. You cope so much about prognostication, but you seem to forget the average consumer and the average user is not Smash JT. We'll cover him in a moment, which is to say later on. Actually, no, we can cover him in a moment just now. But you do not get to claim that every single person is looking forward to shitting on your game. So we're not. Your game comes, your game goes. It sucks, we talk about it, we point out the problems, we move on. You create narratives where you live perpetually in a state of looking for justification to try and ignore what people say. So, literally, the Black Hokage is engaged right now in the behavior that you're talking about, Mr. Developer. They are unwilling to admit that you are looking for a reason to be angry. And in looking for a reason to be angry, you are then telling me that we, the consumers, were justifying a reason to be angry ahead of time. This is him, right now, putting together a reason to ignore the opinions of the people who would criticize the content. As we talk about the fact you won't listen because you don't hear us, because you don't want to. How much more clear can we make it? This is the reason why your game died. However, finishing the article. Oh, it looks like he was removed. I wish the best of luck to those who remain at Wildlight, and hopefully Highguard can stay the course. I believe in it, and so do the fans we reached, who continue to champion it on the subreddit, Discord, Twitch, and social media. So, I believe in this game, and so do all the people who live in a Hugbox, 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 and Hugbox. I noticed that you're not talking about people who are talking about it in the circles that you don't stringently control through a top-down lens. I wonder what matters more, you focusing on your small subgroup, or actually talking about anything at all, period. All 5 of you. Or, to be more accurately, why is it not bringing up Highguard? It unironically won't bring up Highguard unless I bring it up outside of the Steam look. That's so weird. All 1,826 of you. I think I need to use SteamDB. There we go. More accurate number. All 1,1893 of you. From a 24-hour peak of 2,377. So little under of all 2,400 of you. Yep, that's definitely going to pay that subsidiary notice. Certainly, that amount of people is going to hit the near $4.5 million number. All by themselves. Or whatever the number could be now. Let's say it's actually less of that now. Let's say it's more like 200K that you have to hit. Yes, I'm certain all those players, you're going to make money off of them that way. Because how are you going to monetize them? How are you going to monetize the game? You're still selling skins. You're still selling events. There's not enough coverage. There's no team that's going to be playing Marvel Rivals for this. There's no person that's going to change their main video game to your video game. Hell, one of the number one light players in the world who was doing nothing but playing the finals, made by Embark, he changed over and is currently doing nothing but playing Deadlocked. You're not going to find people who are going to do that for High Guard. They are playing it as a topical thing. Your game is dying, if not already dead, if living on zombie status. The people who are currently engaged, they're looking to see if anything funny happens. They are monitoring spirits. Of those monitoring spirits, you lost even more. Somehow you lost nearly 2,500 of the remaining 5% you had. Cut in half. So all those people, right now, that are going to still be sitting around here watching your content? Bro, look at how many people are in your category right now. 9.5k followers, but only 2 under 300 viewers. And your highest viewed stream has 99 viewers. And it's because your game has drops. Thoughts on the argument that Steam database isn't a good metric for a game's player base? It is a good metric for the game's player base. You want to know why? This is a reflection of one of the number one storefronts and online platforms where people can access the content on PC. If people say that Steam database isn't a good metric for looking at the general health of a market base, when we're talking about the actual capitulary of multiple statuses, that's like talking about the fact that measuring how many people were playing Helldivers during its launch wasn't accurate to the point that we had 1.3 million players during the launch cycle on the original shipment of the mobilization curve. Or people doing the exact same thing across the people who could be playing on one platform versus those playing on another cross-platform. Regardless, 300, let's even give you 300 people, allegedly 300 people should be watching your game right now. So let's say in that number, that 300 people playing right now are watching in between games as they're matchmaking. That's not a lot of people, bro. That's not a lot of viewership, bro. That's not a lot of encouragement, bro. And let's even be more fair to you. Let's go to the drops and rewards page. I'm going to click here. Oh, look. There's an award for Eternal Return, a game that I play live on camera. There's another one right now about the Zeroth Directive, about people being involved with Arc Knights. Another game that I'm playing, even though all this shit right here is worthless as a drop stance. I'm going to go here. I'm going to look at all campaigns. I'm going to type High Guard. Here's your game. Here's your drops. An after party emote. A character, which probably is a character skin. A mount. And a banner. Yes. Getting a banner and a mount. And getting a after party skin emote and a Sunwing skin is worth 4 hours of my life watching content. Yes, sir, that is definitely worth my time. It's not worth my time. That's trash. That is unironically trash. It is unironically trash. And that's what you put out as a campaign reward for the first launch of your game. That is so fucking disgustingly, abusively insulting to the conception of Twitch broadcasters and Twitch users who are literally the modern audience. This website, all these people right now watching all this content, these people are the modern audience. You have more people currently, because this right now is being sorted by recommended for you. I'm going to now put this to high and low. Cough, cough. You currently have more people watching Just Chatting, Counter-Strike, Overwatch, the original Overwatch, now that it no longer calls itself Overwatch 2, Valorant, League, Dota, Rainbow Six Siege, Warcraft, GTA 5, Special Events, Fortnite, Minecraft, Arc Raiders, FIFA, World of Tanks, Mugenics, Scamline, IRL, Teamfight Tactics, Brawl Stars, Dead by Daylight, Rust, Street Fighter 6, High Life 2, Warzone, Rivals, Apex, Talk Show Sections, Arena Breakout, Hearthstone, a long since old and dead and now out of the median Resident Evil game in the form of Resident Evil 8, crypto games, Clash Royale, Diablo 4, Diablo 2, somewhere in this list is Diablo 2. Currently Path of Exile and Path of Exile 2. Resident Evil 6, Resident Evil 7, Sea of Thieves. You've got more people watching all of these video games than any other people that are in the category watching yours. All the way down here. Hell, technically, because of the new DLC update, there's actually more people playing Diablo 2. Or rather, I should say Diablo 2 Resurrected. There are more people right now watching and playing Diablo 2 Resurrected, the release of the new Warlock class. And all the people involved in it, many of which happen to be crossovers that come from Path of Exile 2. Because there's Karn, there's Dr. Proof, there's DS Lily, there's Vitablo, there's Freya, there's Llama. All mainstays of my audience, all mainstays of my main gameplay, playing this new patch update because we're between games, than people playing your fucking video game right now. And you have the audacity to say, I still believe in it, and I believe we'll continue championing it for all the people across our social media content. Nigga, you are by yourself. But I digress. Even though this adventure has come to an abrupt and emotionally challenged close, I don't regret a single second of it. Well, you shouldn't. Because if you regret a single second of it, that means you don't believe in your project. And even though you're doing it to say a brave face, I don't believe you really believe that. But hey, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. You're allowed to cry in private. I just wanted to shout out some incredibly supportive journalists and creators who genuinely made a night and day difference in enduring the past 2 months. All these people deserve far more credit than they deserve. All these people that are on this list, you just painted a target on their fucking back. Every single person on this list, you just basically gave us the justification of who never to listen to. And guess what? Guess who's on the list? Guess what nigga's on the list, my niggas? That's right! That's right! This bitch ass! This bitch ass! Yes! That's right! This bitch ass is on the list too! Yes, sir! Yes, sir! Mr. Orange T-shirt's here too! Ready to give up and demonstrate how much of a pussy he is! Yes! Yes, sir! Yes, sir! Yes, sir! Mister, you don't know what they do. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what's happening. Nobody knows what's going on. Literally claiming that eugenics is woke. Just the same way he's trying to claim that Binding of Isaac is woke. Oh yes, unfortunately another huge win for the wokes. We just can't stop winning. You don't know what they do in the video games. It's completely unknown. Lord have fucking mercy. And then more shit, and then more shill shit, and more shill shit, and then you delete your account. So, now that we're here, let's talk about the reality. You, John Chabelle, have the exact same problem as a media grifter, just as much as 8-Bit Closed Fist, as much as Smash JT. Now, snap back to reality. Here we have a precedent moment of Smash JT, who had recently left Saturday Night Hypnosis, feuding with Hypnotic. Or rather, Hypnotic actively disagreeing with something that was said by Smash JT, trying to be a jackass by inserting himself into shit that he shouldn't be a part of. Literally inserting himself and his face into the Mugclug clip from Steven Crowder and saying the following. Dear Bungie and Marathon the Game, take note. If you have to pay someone to promote your game is trash. Change my mind. From Hypnotic, I don't agree with this. I think that's too much of a blanket statement. It is. It's a very big Mont and Bailey. I think we can have a conversation about paying useless people to promote your game, buying into the mostly bot followers, and fake clout, and think it's better to use the funds elsewhere. But choosing not to market your game and pay to promote your content, period, is a bad idea. Especially if you are able to promote it and have a budget. I don't think that makes the game trash at all. 2025 saw the release of the most video games ever, which was a little over 20k video games. 20,000 video games. That is a metric fuck ton of competition. Marketing is very important. Targeted marketing is even more important, and a lot of major studios are targeting the wrong kinds of marketing a lot of the time. Marketing a game and using streamers to do it doesn't make it trash. Eugenics creator is promoting Twitch streamers playing his game. Is that game trash? Did he pay them? Give them the game for free? Who knows? Regardless, the game itself is loved by many and ended up being really good. Which then has Smash JT saying, true, there are certainly ways to utilize marketing funds to get a game out there. Using the spray and pray approach like Ubisoft, paying non-gaming streamers like Hassan to play Assassin's Creed Shadow, for instance, is a forever bad look. Again, Mott Bailey. Mott Bailey. I say that to say this. When you said, my game was a lightning in a bottle, I trust my team wholeheartedly. Our project could never fail. This could never flop. You expressed the reality of what effectively is the reason you failed. In my view, in my opinion, your game failed for 3 reasons. Number 1, you refused to take accountability and criticism. Period. So just putting this in the basic sense of conversations that we've had before. We're going back to the circles, folks. You failed for several reasons. Number 1, you failed to speak the conversation to the proper targets. Every time, it has always been this case. There is a specific place for a specific conversation. There have always been specific places for specific conversations. And this is what you did. You decided to enter into the market space, and you decided to say all these people talking about our video game are not to be listened to. And you decided to hyper-focus on a very specific conversation being had. And you conflated everybody talking about your game negatively as being assholes and chuds and ill-informed and unable and unwilling to give you a chance. When in fact, number 2, they did give you a chance. And what happened was, you didn't reach the target audience you wanted. Your game didn't permeate through the various barriers of reach. And then, lastly, when it came to impressions and the top of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel, you decided to pander. You decided to market to, you decided to pander to, you decided to focus on a very specific, small margin of people that had no interest in hearing different opinions. And you closed yourself off from the opportunity to change shit. You decided anybody talking must have negative investment and negative involvement. And as such, your game died. Because you were taken aback and surprised by that big, fat, giant penis ramming your asshole open. No matter what you say, no matter what you do, the behavior you chose is going to follow your game now. You decided that gamers are bad and don't need to be your audience. So you don't have an audience. You have a nice, safe, empty space that doesn't have the ability to survive. Your game is going to die. It's going to be low played. People are not going to give it a chance because of some basic concepts. Let's look at some of those concepts. Switching over real quick. Your game requires TPM and secure boot. This automatically makes me not want to play your video game. Why do I need to turn on secure boot to play your game? This is just as bad as needing to require some bullshit that I don't need to have in a video game. Like having a guard system, a security guard system that has to be rebooted every time fresh if I ever close it, such as Vanguard running in the background of League of Legends. I do not need to run that shit in order to play your video game. I shouldn't need to. You already have all this other kernel level anti-cheat shit you have. Why would that be required? That's number one. Number two, you're unwilling to listen to what's being told to you. Why would I play your video game if, even if I play your game and I give you constructive criticism, you're going to decide that I'm a part of the wrong audience to take information from, and you're going to ignore what I have to say? And number three, the important part here, you made very clear that you think the way that consumers selling your game to you is wrong. People won't ever give us a chance. All they ever do is they say, remember what happened when people did this? And they're just going to keep doing the same thing. They're going to be stuck in the evil corporate industry. They're going to be stuck to golden handcuffs, and it'll be your fault. Did you know? Did you know, Josh Chabelle, that your argument sounds a lot like Kim Belair's? Oh, I'm a picky baby? I'm a picky baby that if I don't allow myself to be open up to opportunities, then it means that you'll never have a chance because you're going to lose and lose twice? You're going to be told that the market rejects your content, and the market is then going to go in the direction of following whatever makes the best money and has the best critical reviews? Oh, that's very interesting. Suck my cock. You know why you have to suck my cock? It's because that's how you get me to play your game. Appeal to me. Your game does not appeal to me. Sorry, I didn't play it. I'm not going to jump through hoops to play a video game that doesn't appeal to me. I don't have to eat a moldy shit sandwich. But at the same time, you made the distinction to decide to tell me that because I chose to make a choice where I didn't choose you, that meant I was the scum of the earth. So now not only do I have a reason not to ever pick your product, but it's now my vested interest to tell people that you are a bad company that actively does not appreciate what you have.
But single player Carl, didn't you open up a segment of the stream where you were telling people that if they didn't go to your Discord?
No, that's not the same thing. And any person who tries to use that argument, you deserve to be fucking bashed in the head with a fucking rope. A pico hammer, even. Make a nice large squeak every time it hits you in the head. Specifically the sound of a 90s squeak toy being squeezed. Like a rubber ducky. No, developers here decided to say, I shipped a video game, and I was never at fault. What I opened my stream with and said was, if you go to the place, if you don't go to the place where I can be able to service you, I can't service you. I said, go to the help desk and use the help desk to get my attention. People came to your help desk and said, listen, 3-on-3 sucks. Can't you consider opening this mode up and making the map bigger? And you said, I'll take that constructive criticism. Then another person came up and said, hey, your game mode sucks. Can you consider not opening up this map in this certain way? And you looked at them and you said, you're one of those gaming grifters. You don't deserve to have our product. That's what you did. You decided you didn't want to make money. You decided you knew better than the customer. And trust me, the customer is always right when matters of opinions and in matters of style and taste. But these people don't know what they want until they have it in their hands and they're playing it. But 95% of people tried your content and they said it wasn't worth it. Who do you blame at that point when the world rejects you? Certainly, your entire worldview was shattered apart. But was it because you didn't take the proper amount of criticism? You didn't take the proper amount of content? No. It's because you ignored constructive criticism and decided some criticism wasn't worth it. And now, whatever the je ne sais quoi necessary to really find out what the really bad thing you're selling is you can't put it together. Because those people who would have given you the advice on how to fix the game, they're gone now. They left. They left the building. They saw you being rude. They saw you being assholes. They saw you ignoring their advice and their opinions. They saw your customer service. And they said it's not worth it. They'll eat somewhere else. You decided you knew better and you knew so much. And now what do you have? Nothing. Meanwhile, just to compare to your enemies and your consortium, you're losing to Counter-Strike, you're losing to Marvel Rivals, which is also free. And look, not only is it free, it doesn't run in Secure Boot. You're losing to Arc Raiders. You're losing to Apex Legends. Hell, you are even argumentatively losing to Overwatch. Again, another free-to-play game that doesn't run in boot. Certainly it has an invasion bundle, but, you know, argumentative. All this material, all these video games, all these services, they're eating your lunch. They're eating your lunch. Do we have to go so far as to bury you based on the numbers? We will, because I'm that much of an asshole. Let's just go based on the suggestions that are on this page right here alone. Okay? Let's just go off the page that I physically have up right now. It's already pre-showing 5 other video games other than yours. Deadlocked, Overwatch, Beginix, Arc Raiders, Marvel Rivals. Click, 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 click. Your number is 1,793. Oh my god! Look at how big that penis is! Ramming it in your asshole! 100k players online right now. And those are all people inside of what is effectively a closed beta, where they've been inviting their friends and playing with their friends. Overwatch! Oh
Oh my god, look at that big, thick, girthy penis.
Mugenics, big, thick, girthy penis. And it's a single-player game. Arc Raiders, big, thick, girthy penis. Twice the size. Nearly 3 times the size. Are you howling? Are you screaming from how your walls are being caved in? You ain't gonna shit right for a week. And then finally, not as big, but damn, look at the thirk. Look at the girthiness. Look at the retention pattern. They all have the same retention pattern. And look at you. I don't hear them blaming incels. I don't hear them blaming chuds. I don't hear them blaming bad customers. I don't hear them blaming bad opinions. Can't blame it on anti-cheat. Can't blame it on company. Can't blame it on involvement. Can't blame it on access. Can't blame it on popularity. A Chinese/South Korean company. Technically a German company. With all this shit involved in it. A company that effectively runs itself based on involvement. From Edmund McMullen. Blizzard, need I say more, with how bad the reviews are. And yet they're still pulling better numbers than you. So it's not reviews. Review bombs don't do shit. It's just an opinion. People have a right to have an opinion. But according to you, if they have negative opinions, that makes them a part of the problem. In a game that isn't even properly open to the public. All 5 of these games, technically 6 if we include the window that I just put up for Diablo Resurrected. All 6 of these pieces of content don't have your problems. It's not a review bomb problem. It's not an industry problem solely by itself. It is your attitude against the consumer. You think you know better than the consumer. And the consumer said, bet, watch this shit. All of these different titles have their own problems. All of these different titles have their own issues, they have their own quirks, and they have their own problems. To claim that Overwatch is eating your lunch, but that they're actually non-toxic would be a retarded statement. We know that Overwatch is full of the same players playing Marvel Rivals. You technically should have combined both the player bases together and understand that that's the case. Unironically, oh, you thought that? Watch this drive type shit. But at the same time, Overwatch has its problems. It's Activision Blizzard. Or technically Blizzard Entertainment, if you want to be more accurate, despite the fact it's Activision Blizzard. But they're the most toxic of players. So is League players. So is the majority of the Rivals players. Deadlock isn't even a game open to the public to play. So, how many people can actually be able to understand and experience that Kino when they don't actually have content access to it? And so on and so on and so on. But no, sir, no. The reason why Highguard failed is because the industry made something that consumers didn't want and didn't ask for. And then when they complained and said, could you make it better? You said, no, you're one of the bad ones. I'm only listening to the trusted, aggressed sources. All of the shills that we basically have decided are more important than you. And they said, okay, and they left. After rejecting your content. Your game is going to die. I hope you're proud of yourselves. Moving on. To quickly address the Black Hokage. Industry coons, like the Black Hokage, don't have room to talk. Period. Nobody asked for these games, and the industry actively refuses to listen to consumers to fix them, and they're out of touch in the first place. Because the irony about these pieces of content is that technically the address numbers actually do say that people asked for these things. It is the case that actually the numbers from 5 years ago would have told you that battle arenas, MOBAs, and hero shooters were all the rage. But you guys are behind the times. You're out of touch with what people are actually asking for. They don't want to wait in queue for 30 minutes to an hour to catch a game of ranked, let alone a game of casuals. They don't want unfun game balance that makes them feel like they don't actually get to play the video game. That instead, it's all about how one person gets to play the video game and 9 people have to basically work with the attitudes of the other 4 people that are on the ally team, and the enemies on the other team as 5 players have to deal with the fact that one person in the lobby has now made it entirely unfun to play against the other 4 people that are on the enemy team. Looking at you, Deadpool. Because of this old data, that's how you get Concord. That's how you get the current variation of Marathon. That's how you got and canceled Hyenas. That's how you got Splitgate 2. That's how you got it rebooted. That's how you got High Guard. That's how you got all of these things like Anthem. That's how you got things like the New Horizon Gathering. You're going off old data. And when you tell you, update your books, you say, nah, you don't know how this works. So yes, people are definitely going to cheer on the death of things they didn't ask for killing gaming. Because hopefully, it means that they'll finally do what they asked them for. What they're telling them to do. And you don't get to go behind yourself and use examples of people saying, listen bro, they ain't finna listen to us. So why would what finna happen next? And say, ah, that proves you don't see us wanting to move better. Again, go fuck yourselves. You're a part of the problem. You're a part of the problem. You're a part of the problem. And when it comes to the dumbass take that came out of the mouth of Smash JT, when you are one of the people who are unwilling to do your fucking job and actually play video games by living under a boomer dad rock, focusing more on drama than you are on the news, well, that makes you a casual. And hey, I'm not going to make a take about how much time you need to play in order to be considered a gamer, but I am going to say that the demographic of shit that you're consuming does say a lot about you and your channel's content. And last I checked, as was said by Colin Moriarty, I have never seen a casual tourist person care so passionately about something that they decided to make a channel about it, and they focus more on the drama of lolcow shit happening in the scene rather than the video games happening in the scene. It's kind of like the opinion of somebody like that, of Josh Strife Hayes. He's recently said yesterday that ever since he's been playing World of Warcraft Classic with the Questy add-on, he's had more people come up to him and tell him that he's playing the game the wrong way than ever before. Because it's between the fact that you have people who are either constantly playing the video games or spending their hard-earned time arguing incessantly to tell you that you're playing the video game the wrong way. For all those people who are playing the game, I hope you keep having fun playing your game, and that you never experience what's already happened to various other video games, like what happened to my game, Phantasy Star Online 2, or other games like it, in the past, present, or future. But for every single person who's bitching, whining, and moaning and coping, much the same way I can say that people like the Black Hokage, and people like the Mighty Keith, and people like Smash JT are, you're all media grifters if you do this. You're all behaving like media grifters. And when you decide to say stupid, retarded shit, your mutuals have the right to stand against you and to disagree with you. At best, disagreement is okay and acceptable. To call you out outright and say that you're fucking delusional, also a part of it. But hey, don't take my word for it. Let's see it together. Insert Decembro. Yesterday, High Guard developers refused to take accountability.
Okay guys, so here's the deal, because I want to get this intro thing out of the way as fast as possible so we can dive straight into the sauce, alright? So, Highguard, you remember Highguard, right? So anyway, Highguard has been losing players like crazy. It's amazing, honestly. It just keeps going lower and lower. This poor game just cannot find the bottom. We might actually get to a point where it has less players than Dustborn or something. As a result of this, what happened was the studio, Wildlight Entertainment, just fired a bunch of people. I don't know exactly how many, but according to some fired developers that have spoken out, it was most of the team, truly ending up living up to the Concord 2 meme. And of course, as a result of that, a bunch of them are online making little gatherings to cope about it, blaming us, the gamers, over the flop. Apparently it's your fault as a gamer and my fault as a content creator that this game, to this day, is still managing to lose concurrent players day after day. Like, we're not even doing anything and people just keep leaving, but I don't know, fellas, it's our fault. It is what it is. So in this video, we're going to crush the code.
What I find to be the most annoying thing about that is every time it's not just the choices and the actions of the post, it's the general apathy. If we say nothing, we're at fault. If we say the game sucks and I don't want to play it, we're at fault twice. If we say the game sucks and this is what you can expect to find it, and we talk about what they said about it, we're at fault 3 times. Because we told you what they thought, we gave our opinion, and we allowed you to make your own conclusions. Truthfully, we cannot win. I think the most disgusting part is the I didn't do anything and you're blaming me for this type of shit. But we digress.
Hope. We'll be going through an article written by one of their developers sharing his perspective and ending up getting a bunch of crap wrong. Too much attention on things that don't matter and not enough on things that caused this disaster and that should be learned from to avoid doing again in the future. So let's not waste any more time and let's get in there. So the article starts with, apologies for the length. That's what he said. Am I right, ladies?
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the
Sorry, anyway, been wanting to say a lot of this for a while. The day leading to the Game Awards 2025 was amongst the most exciting of my life. After 2.5 years of passionately working on Highguard, we were ready to reveal it to the world. The future seemed bright. Man, this reads like one of those Stephen King books where you're in the first part where the family is packing up to go on holiday before something really bad happens. Everyone I knew who had any connection to the team or project had the same sentiments. This is lightning in a bottle. I trust this team wholeheartedly. If there's one project nobody in the industry is worried will fail, it's yours. This has mainstream hit written all over it. There's no way this will flop. I could play this game all day. So here's what you do, by the way. So you find everybody who said this, and you fire. So in other words, and now getting serious here, they had a closed feedback loop of people gassing each other up about how amazing their own game was. You know, this is actually kind of familiar because it's exactly what happened with Concord 1, the original. Everyone loved it, the developers were having a lovely time making it, they were all chuffed, it was a dream project, the game was progressing beautifully, everyone was dancing and singing songs, and anyone else they spoke to in the team or even linked up to Sony thought that this was so good that it was shaping up to be PlayStation's very own Star Wars. And I mean, I guess if the goal was Disney Star Wars, then they did a fantastic job, but if they meant Star Wars in general, then holy shit, boys. We gotta send someone over to check the water at the studio. I think they were drinking Kool-Aid spiked with ecstasy or something. The dude continues. The internal pre-reveal feedback, even from unbiased sources, was quite positive, and where it was negative, it was constructive and often actionable. People who played the game, including us, had a blast. And since we were an independent, self-published studio built with royalties in mind, many of us were hoping that this could finally be the thing that broke the millennial financial curse. This game never made it out to the public, so it's difficult to actually call any source unbiased. Like, showing the game to other industry people isn't necessarily an unbiased opinion. And as far as the rest of this goes, you were playing your own game and you were enjoying it. Imagine that. How could this be? Like, fellas, let me drop you some Decembro lore. Back when I was in school, we had
Pause. One of the things that's important about game design, especially when you are playing something for the first time, is that you have to try a game yourself to see if the game loop that you designed is actually enjoyable. I have talked multiple times about things that I've been a part of the project team of. Like, for example, Five Nights at Fuckboys. I was a part of the playtesting team that tested all the hardest fights in the game, making sure that they were not only possible, but the amount of tactics that you could use to succeed at them was something that could only truly be enjoyed by somebody who took the time to do it. And yet, the amount of people that demonstrated that this was the case, that they just simply think that because they played their own video game and that they played it with friends that they decided to show it to was the same thing as showing it to an unbiased source is ridiculous.
A small programming class where we were tasked with making our own video game in this little program that allowed you to create basic games, very basic 2D stuff. You could do something boring like Simon Says or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, stuff like that, or you could be based like me and make a Batman game. So I went on YouTube, downloaded some tracks from the Christopher Nolan movies, I didn't pay for them, made a few Batman sprites for running, jumping, and crouching, and I made a shitty platforming game where you collected Batarang-shaped coins. That game was garbage, and yet I played it for so many hours while making it and ironing out the kinks that it's like the game sodomized my mind and made me feel like the thing was good. But anyway, I'm sure that's totally unrelated to what's going on here, because guess what, guys? Guess what it is that my Batman game did not have? That's right, it did not have Jeff Keighley coming in on a Tuesday and blowing 3 loads while playing an internal build of the game. Jokes aside though, this is a textbook example of that same toxic positivity that hit Concord hard. They should have done better testing by running betas or growing the game alongside a community. Instead, they were mashing together a bunch of ideas and just drinking that Kool-Aid like, this is so great, that looks so good, yeah, oh, Susie, great work on John Highgard, he looks so striking. And Mike, I got your notes on putting 3 players versus another 3 players on a map the size of Rhode Island littered with rocks for players to mine. I absolutely love it. Make it happen, boys. Like, the Concord allegations truly cannot be beaten, guys. But then the trailer came out, and it was all downhill from there. Content creators love to point out the bias in folks who give positive previews after being flown out for an event, but ignore the fact that when their negative-leaning content gets 10 times the engagement of the positive, they've got just as much incentive to lean into a disingenuous direction, whether consciously or not. Oh, now I'm mad. You got me mad now. See, I was having a good time and now I'm upset. The reason why people call out bias when you fly out people for a preview event is because you're flying out people to an event, dumbass. Negative content for negative content's sake doesn't just work. Like, I can't make a video tomorrow dragging Expedition 33 saying it sucks, the combat sucks, the music sucks, the story is baby garbage, the characters look like French people, so on and so forth. I mean, I might get decent views, sure, but I'm gonna get torn to shreds and my channel will get a stain on it. Immediate clown label. People would just leave and never return. Here's the harsh truth. Your game is just not worth the positive content. Comprende? You are making this god-awful argument from a position that suggests that Highguard is actually good and all the negative videos are biased that way because content creators used it to generate revenue. Just doesn't work that way, Chief. Authenticity and accuracy matters in content creation. Just like making something fun and engaging matters in the video game creation. You make a bad game, the players leave, it flops and then you cry online. You make bad videos, the viewers leave, you crash out and then you turn into Darkside Phil. Alternatively, you may also turn into Boogie2988, or in most cases, you just go back to a regular job and that's that. Also, here's another critical flaw in your assessment. As soon as the trailer for Highguard dropped, live at the Game Awards, before anyone even had time to think about what lens to cover the game with, it was already over. The live chats were already cooking the game alive because of how generic it looked. And now here's another
Pause. That's not what I think was the reason of what was killing the game. I believe what was killing the game was the combination of several things. But the number one thing was that there was no trailer of what gameplay was. We were shown a non-gameplay driven trailer of basically the vision of what we were supposed to expect the game would be. And what we have on screen is the reality of what it is. It is effectively 1 part Apex, 1 part Halo, 2 parts, the worst parts of PvP from Destiny and Destiny 2, around a industry format that involves a harvest and raid segment that then combines 1 part World at War, 1 part Battleground and Battlefield, and 1 part COD Search and Destroy. But rather than making it real Search and Destroy, it is not Search and Destroy. Because Search and Destroy is at least 5 people. Maybe even more than that on a team. 5 is the standard. You made yours 3-on-3. In a map the size of Quake. Actually, no. Not even the size of Quake. Quake has an actually well-designed map system. The size of putting 2 Halo maps together. That's really what killed your game. Nobody could understand what the gameplay flow was supposed to be. There were no interesting shots. There were no interesting trailers of what you could do as a player class. And that meant that people couldn't really engage in your vision. I think we can agree that was actually really the core problem. People couldn't engage in the vision that you were promising them. Because what you were promising them versus what they got did not match. At all.
critical flaw in this shitty, mindset of yours. If content creators have to make negative videos because negative videos get more engagement, that would imply content creators disingenuously go where the wind blows. So hating on Highguard is in fashion. Screw my apparent hyper-positive feelings on the game. I'm just going to lie and roast it because that's what sells for me. But then if this is the case, then how the hell are content creators to blame for the negativity? Like, a little bit further ahead in this article of his, he's going to bring up how content creators and gamer we share the blame. Not all the blame, but at least part of the blame, because we actually have a lot of power. Well, which is it, Josh? Are we powerful mind-benders who negatively influence influence people to not try a $0 game, or are we cucked losers chasing whatever it is that people are already thinking because it brings in more engagement for views? Are gamers influenced by the content creators, or are the content creators influenced by gamers? Like, make up your mind, or better yet, stop coping and realize that you had a bad game in your hands. You had an announcement trailer that looked generic as it looked like Live Service number 446, John Highguard and the Prisoner of Concord. And then later on the game comes out and it's hindered by a boring gameplay loop that has you hitting rocks and looking for arbitrary layered loot that exists solely to extend the length of each match. That's literally what it's there for. You got 4 tiers of loot: white, blue, purple, and orange. The more rounds each match contains, right, the longer a match goes, the higher the colors unlock, and you're forced to go dick around on horseback, picking up garbage to upgrade your color. Otherwise, someone else shows up, and even if they have the same gun as you, the same armor pieces as you, but theirs are purple and yours are blue, you're artificially cooked, even if you're a better shot, because they'll be doing more damage than you while taking less of it. That's the average experience. And you want to know another critical issue in all of this? The gaslighting. You set up a preview event designed to have a bunch of influencers, streamers, and game journalists glaze the game like 2 days before launch, all in tandem. Out of nowhere, all these people just got home from being wined, dined, and 69'd while playing Highguard, and all of them have glowingly positive feedback. Then the game comes out, and the difference from these people to the actual player's experience is night and day. And what didn't help the situation is, when you're being gaslit, told the game is actually the best shooter in years, it only creates more friction, and that friction is unpredictable. It could go well and start generating more interest and positive feedback, or it could go badly when the feedback is negative, and then the game looks even worse because it sounds like the developers are paying people off to glaze it, even if that's not the case. It's time to stop the cope, dude. Game launched, hit almost 100,000 concurrent players. In the space of 1 day, half of them left. In the following days, it just kept falling further and further. This isn't hate campaigns on the internet, or content creators making negative videos for engagement. It's not that that doesn't exist. Of course it exists. Not the hate campaigns. The campaigns are just campaigning. Ain't nobody campaigning, brother. The game just sucks, okay? Negative videos, though, yes.
It's a little bit more than just campaigning. It's 3 things. People playing it, leaving. People leaving comments. People making videos about how the game sucks and using examples of other people's content to make a case and make an argumentative statement that people can then choose to agree with because it's persuasive. So, for that example, remember when we were covering it when it first started from the position of using takes that came from myself, Asmongold, and begrudgingly Video Game Donkey. My computer would not let me properly access my board to do secure boot. Because I said I couldn't do it, tried it, didn't work. So, I used Video Games Donkey's example. Through that, and then just looking at the gameplay loop as people were playing it, as there were various people who were streaming this video game, I'm able to assert my idea of what was going on. I left a comment. I left a review on the board. And I suggested one of the things that would probably help is if you remove secure boot, so that people could actually try it without potentially thinking they're going to destroy their computer. Because most of the people who aren't even engaging are going to stop when they see that preventative measure in the first place. I was then told, lol, bro won't even do this one simple little thing to play the video game. That was when I was fully out. That's not a marketing campaign, my friend. That's not a harassment campaign, my friend. That is me seeing a label and deciding I'm not going to do the thing. And then I was told by a head developer that was bitching and whining on their forums, actually, if you won't do this thing, then blah, 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 blah. But you guys designed it that way. Did you notice that all of those other games that we just covered didn't do that to those players? Why are you making people jump through this hoop for a free-to-play game? You can't even use this argument based on a paid loop versus a paywall. Before Battle Right went free-to-play, and it too got ruined the same way, it was a $40 game. They didn't have these problems. They were fully monetized. Then they went free-to-play. And it was all downhill from there. Making the same excuses and the same arguments. Because you see, people commenting, that doesn't lead to that many people leaving in that many droves, bro. So what do you mean? Gamers are the reason because of their word of mouth. But also, gamers are bad because they left review bombs, also known as their opinions, in massive droves. Are there people who are definitely doing so just to be a part of the meme, to say I was here and I shout on the game and it was funny? Yes, there are. Even if you discounted all of those people's comments, you would still have a overwhelming negative total of comments and reviews that reveal that your content's just bad. But again, I digress.
They do exist. But regardless, if a game is good, nobody gives a shit what a content creator says. Vice versa applies too. Asmongold was saying if I was a 7...
Pause. This is a word that is called cognitive bias. If I tell you that something that you think is bad is good, but I present it as though it was an argument that came from somebody else, I can get you to side with my opinion by choosing to tell you information that you inherently, by a bias, decided that you distrusted. No, don't use Asmongold as the cope, because it wouldn't have mattered if Zachary was the one who said it. Because technically, you don't even have to use Zachary. You can just use somebody else. Like Donkey. Donkey! The man who will tell people that actually the old Resident Evil games with tank controls were bad. And these remakes are good. And when we get what we want, it is good. But if we don't get what we want, it is bad. Those people, that person, and people like him, looked this game in its eyes and clowned on it for what it was. They didn't tell people to shit on the game. They didn't send people to shit on the game. They just presented it as was. And that was people's context, if they hadn't already played it. If Asmongold had done the same thing, it wouldn't have mattered then either. People made that choice of their own volition. But there are some people who quite literally would do anything in the world to claim that actually because they said it, it means it's great, or because they said it, it means that it's bad. You need to learn to remove your bias and think about the actual merit of the opinion based on who the fuck said it. Because unfortunately, this is just the money and Jews argument again. Isn't it just important that the reason why the game sucks is because the game's bad? Well, then why does it matter who said what? It matters because you are claiming that the consumers are the reason that the game sucks. The consumers are at fault for your failure. But then you're also blaming people like content creators and market journalists that are against you, while then praising and glazing the people who are actively responsible for you being in a cognitive bias trap that surrounded you with toxic positivity and useless advice that then made you unable to pivot to change it in a way that would make you survive winter. How do you say this? How could anyone say that? It doesn't help, dude. It doesn't matter if you're talking about something that's good but somebody disagrees, or something that's bad but somebody disagrees. If you have to use somebody else's argument without your own ability to have your own opinion, then it means that you're just using the weight of their power as a cudgel to smack people down. That doesn't work for persuasive arguments. Especially if we're talking about something that you should have been able to experience yourself. Hello, everything's degeneracy.
Last year. His chat cooked him alive for it. It is what it is. Doesn't matter what Asmon says, or Legendary drops, or anyone else. If people have the slightest inkling of interest to try your game, if it looks good to them, or if they're at least minimally curious to try it, they're going to do it, especially when the game is free. There's no barriers standing between people and trying the game. But they didn't.
Pause. There actually is a barrier standing between people and game. There's always been barriers standing between people and content. It's called time and interest. If you remove the argument of interest of they'll get around to it eventually, the ultimate result is time. There is not enough time in the day for me to take my time out on high guard because I am unwilling to do the desire that comes with the investment of what has to happen in order for me to play that game. I do not have enough interest to do what they're asking. I do not have enough time to take out the interest to do what they're asking. You could use but it's only these 5 to 2 little steps. It's not a step problem. It's an interest problem. And then, when they blamed me, it became a petty problem. As a consumer, I'm petty. If you tell me I'm at fault for you dying, I'm going to say good. I'm going to make sure I stay responsible for it. And then, again, suck my cock. Because, no, actually, you're at fault. Because it's your job to sell me. Just as much as a content creator, it is my job to sell you. But, very much so, it's still an interaction. It's still a two-way street. It's my job to communicate my opinions well and effectively. But it's also your job to pay attention and to absorb the information. If at some point I miscommunicate, it is somebody's job to ask questions. If that person facetiously wastes my time asking a stupid question, I can't help that person, no matter what, because that person's being facetious. In other words, to put this in words that make sense to the situation, if a developer claims that somebody is bad faith and that they only are interested in harassing the game and making news coverage and getting money from covering the game negatively, it should be very clear whether or not they're doing it on purpose. Because if you have a frequently asked questions section and it is addressed there, but the person is clearly behaving in a way as though that information doesn't exist, despite claiming that they read it or engaged with it, then you know that you can disengage with what they're saying and doing. So, there is such a thing as a good viewer and a bad viewer. There is such a thing as a good consumer and a bad consumer. If a person's not willing to take out the time to hear you out and listen to you, and we're assuming it's because they aren't just a part of a hate campaign, a harassment campaign even, but it's because they don't have enough time out of the day to spend on your shit, you cannot just come at them the way that you're coming at them. Because you're going to burn them against you. And then you're going to be at fault for what happens next. It's a cycle. It's a vicious circle of a cycle. But it's a cycle. And you have to understand the ups and downs of it. And how you're accountable to it. But I digress.
And the ones that did left. How can you just take this and point it all towards content creators and negative content on the internet? At some point, you just have to look around and think for 2 seconds that just doesn't make any sense. Not to justify the current state of the game where currently the player number is like 3,000. From 97 to 3,000 and you're taking no accountability? That's crazy, brother. The hate started immediately. In addition to dogpiling on the trailer, I personally came under fire due to my naivete on Twitter, which almost all of my now former co-workers had learned to avoid during their previous game launches. After setting my Twitter account to private to protect my sanity, many content creators made videos and posts about me and my cowardice, amassing millions of views and inadvertently sending hundreds of angry gamers into my replies. They laughed at me for being proud of the game, told me to get out the McDonald's applications, and mocked me for listing having autism in my bio, which they seemed to think was evidence the game would be woke trash. All of this was very emotionally taxing. What do I even say here, fellas? I'm just not even interested in any of this overly dramatic stuff. There's things here that don't even make sense to me, like the woke trash thing. This was just not at all a prominent narrative about Highguard. If you watch me, you know how I feel about this whole thing of attacking developers of games. I don't like it. I think it's lame. It's one thing when you have developers attacking you, like classic cases we went through together on this channel over time, like Matt Unhinged Hansen from Obsidian, or activists trying to burn the industry to the ground from the inside, or delusional toasters like this one here, who say they want to deliberately sabotage our games with garbage, and then they cry and blame the big bad gamers when the game releases and nobody wants to buy it. Like, that's one thing, but it's another when it's just a random dude like this posting about his first release or announcement trailer or whatever. Like, leave them be. With that said, I don't even know who this guy is. I never heard of him before. I've never seen his name pass by during the Highguard drama, so I have no idea what he's—
Pause. Whether or not you've seen him or not, there's a very clear difference here, okay? If you go out of your way and you choose to antagonize somebody by saying, hey, I'm a designer at Red Thread Games. I was responsible and tied and attracted with Dustborn. And I say that I will keep putting knitting men and sexy non-binary characters in video games and I will never stop. You are responsible for what happens next. Period. Because you're attacking people. If you are going out of your way to say that there's no such thing as just a fan, you're the reason we make stuff. It's why we do everything we can to make the game inclusive as possible. Pissing off the chuds is a side benefit. You are clearly making a distinction between the people who are your, quote, targets and the people who are, quote, the right voices. As they clearly are doing this on Blue Sky. and occasionally on Twitter. This is a form of marketing that you're doing. You are marketing yourselves towards people that clearly will not speak up for you when it's time to, and against people who are a part of the vocal and the silent majorities that will actively make their opinions known, whether it be through the paying of their wallets, or it be through the silence of their voices, and then when it comes time, the voting they do in the booth. There is a difference between these things. Clearly, he falls in the camp of the second type, who didn't outright antagonize people, but definitely is blaming them for something. He doesn't deserve to be antagonized, but where he's chosen to make forward statements that can be criticized, those statements can be dissected, consumed, criticized, and then counter-narratived. This is different than Thea Berg choosing to say that she will continue to make video games that choose to try and upset the culture of what she sees as a negative, toxic blight, and that you should be afraid of them. I don't think you can say, bro, I don't even know who you are. We know he's a game dev. At very least, you can say, listen, I think the game's bad, but don't attack the game devs. If the game devs attacked you, and you're responding to what they said, that makes it a little bit different, if not a lot different. But if they're just talking about how they feel, and you decided that gave you the room to say basically the equivalent of die of fat, die of your autism, die of X, X of Y, because of Z, you're unhinged. We can all agree with that. If you attack them over something that has nothing to do with the video game, you're unhinged. Left, right, dead, center. I don't care where you come from.
And the game releases and nobody wants the announcement trailer or whatever. Like, leave them be. With that said, I don't even know who this guy is. I never heard of him before. I've never seen his name pass by during the High Guard drama. So I have no idea what he's talking about, that content creators made videos on him that got millions of views. I checked this dude's profile. He has 2 posts that aren't at all inflammatory. So without any further context, I'm just moving on. I didn't see any such video. I don't know. Like, you wanna know who got millions of views? Matt Hansen. Because he was unhinged and everybody knows his name. This guy, I don't know what he's talking about. And given the guy referring to memes and shit like that as hate, I would honestly wager they're just being overly sensitive. For example, these are 2 comments that he had in the hidden reply section of his post. So he hid these 2 comments. Like, these 2 comments were apparently too much. And it's just, there's not even any hate here. If anything, these are just people offering him advice like, hey man, get ahead of the curve and start putting out some applications for some...
Pause. Tons of haters online after the reveal, but I gotta say, you guys really should have done a better job explaining what the game actually is. This is not a hate comment. This is him being mad that he got good constructive criticism. Start looking for jobs, bro. Nothing personal, but just look at the online reception. Get ahead of it, man. Generally look everywhere. This game is mentioned. Every thread on multiple platforms and communities are all shitting on it. Generally look after yourself and bail. I would say this can be seen as side-handedly antagonistic. Because you're outright telling them, hey bro, your game sucks, bro. Bro, you should start looking up for interviews and for fucking handouts, bro. You should start diversifying your portfolio, bro. This is going bad, bro. This is one of those kind of comments. You could try to be positive and try to spin the line on this, but the way that I look at this comment, this is someone basically saying nicely that I am going to lose my money and lose my opportunity. And sensitivity is not the problem. You don't need to say these kind of comments, especially out in public. But if we're going to call a spade, the first comment is constructive. The second comment is very much concerning, but not deserving of needing to be said publicly, to the point that it was probably triggering. Maybe accidentally, maybe purposefully. We will never know. But you should not be privating these comments. That's only going to encourage people to accuse you of worse.
Some other studios because this game ain't looking good. I get it, it sucks sometimes, but it's the internet. What I don't condone is violent people who cross those lines. So if somebody did that, L on them. With that said, there's really not much here to pick up on. So let's just move on and get to the good stuff. There is much constructive criticism that can be and has been said about Highguard's trailer, marketing, and launch, but I don't think it's my place to commentate on that. I also don't think there's any way to know whether the launch would have fared better or worse without the massive spotlight that was thrown onto us in response to the Game Awards trailer placement. But we never got that chance. Guys, I don't want to be cringe or anything, like I don't want to be like one of those essay tubers who point at one thing and turn towards the mic like, and there it is, dear viewer, the Achilles heel, the proof of where it all went wrong. But it is funny to me that when it comes to palpable stuff, such as discussing constructive criticism that should be said for the trailer, marketing, and launch, the dude says it's not his place to comment on it. Like, what do you mean it's not your place to comment on it? You're a game developer. In this article, you complain about hate that's thrown at the game, like, okay, so you don't want to look through the hate and then try to find a single common thread, such as, for example, acknowledging that there's something deeply wrong with the game. No, instead you just go, no, the hate is because content creators made meme videos about the game. But now you don't want to engage with the constructive stuff either? This is such a red flag for toxic positivity too. Like, I could see this being thrown around in the studio. Like, people preferring to stay quiet internally instead of saying, hey guys, are we sure we need this game to be such a messy mashup of other games? Hey guys, is this the art style we should really go for? Isn't it overdone? Isn't it kind of cartoony and childish? Don't, shooter players usually prefer something else? Hey guys, shouldn't we launch with more modes of play rather than a 3v3? Hey guys, is 3v3 really the way to go when we're horsing around looking for crystals for elongated sections of the game that break the flow? We're probably getting back to follow up on this point later, but for now, the Jeff Keighley situation. I already said before that pinning it on Jeff Keighley doesn't make sense either. Yes, he absolutely did put a spotlight on the game that it would naturally not have. If it was at the start of the show or in the middle...
Pause. I don't think I agree with that.
This point later, but for now, the Jeff Keighley situation. I already said before that pinning it on Jeff Keighley doesn't make sense either. Yes.
I think it makes a ton of sense to blame Jeff, because they wanted to shadow drop this game and slowly update it over time. By putting a giant spotlight on the game, you made what would have been a quiet failure into a spectacle to be observed. And now we put this under a microscope. I think if you try to ignore that, you're doing a disservice, because that's half the reason why we are talking about it. Look at how out of touch they are. Damn, bro, I can't believe it's crazy that they decided to put this in the middle of the show. Did they need to give this a presentation on the stage? If this game had been shadow dropped, it would have been a case of, hey dude, did you know that there was a game out called Highguard? Hi what? It would have been an entirely different conversation. Instead of it being a spectacle, it would have become something that if I had brought it up as a case example in something like a debate, would have been properly responded to by, I legitimately don't know what that is. Can you tell me? Assuming that debate opponent would be honest about it. Instead, everybody knows what Highguard is, because everybody who was watching that event saw the same shit. That was because of Jeff. Jeff literally said he put them in that showcase because he played some of the content and he said, damn, y'all niggas really gotta see what they got cooking here. They didn't ask for this. He gave it to them. For free. Do you know how much money people spend in the industry to secure those ad spots in his show? And you gave them the biggest one at the end of the night for free. This is a question about efficaciousness. Efficacy. Was it effective to give them that sponsorship? Was it effective to give them that ad campaign? Was it effective to give them that time slot for the commercial? No. So Jeff is at fault. He's not the only thing at fault, but he is definitely one of the biggest factors. Because if it wasn't televised on such a big scale, people probably wouldn't have been against you. But again, I digress.
He absolutely did put a spotlight on the game that it would naturally not have. If it was at the start of the show or in the middle, the game would have just been kind of forgotten. Just yet another live service in the middle of a bunch of trailers. No major dramatics, maybe just some jokes, and that's...
How the fuck... Decembro, how the fuck can you say it wouldn't have mattered, and then also say, but Keighley wouldn't... that it would have mattered if people had placed it at different positions, so it would have been forgotten about, but also say that Keighley isn't at fault. Either he is or he isn't. It's his event, it's his show, it's what he did.
probably it. But that itself is still a major problem. Not that long ago, Wildlight was said to have expanded to 100 developers. I also mentioned this in the previous video talking about how a delay could be very expensive, because they got 100 mouths to feed working on this thing. Now, 2 weeks after launch, the studio is already flushing all these people down the toilet. Mass layoffs at Wildlight. Most of the damn team just got nuked because this game has been continuously falling in player count. Now, I don't want to do too much math in this video because I have a reputation to keep as a patented dumbass. But if this studio is already going through layoffs 2 weeks after launch because it has failed to attain those 100,000 players and lost 90% of them, technically more day by day, then how would it have stood any better of a chance without that spotlight? It would have released even more quietly, which means less eyes on it. While it would have been surely better for the developer morale to not have to see their game get torn to shreds, it wouldn't have made the game perform better financially, okay? Unless you're actually a lobotomite who genuinely thinks that people are sitting here playing the game, genuinely having fun, and then going on Twitter or whatever and seeing their favorite streamer going, haha, Concord 2, and then suddenly they stop enjoying the game and they join the mob. This is delusional, okay? Again, if a guy likes a game, a guy likes a game.
Pause. I don't think that's delusional. I think that's attention economy. People are tuning in to broadcasts that are popular. They are then adapting and adopting opinions and arguments that came from the broadcaster, and they're repeating them because they see the way that the arguments, that the wind is turning. This is literally just the Act Man and how he operates. It's literally just Anthony Gramuccia and how he operates. It's literally just the Mighty Keith. It's literally just the Black Okage. It's literally what media grifters from the left wing do. No more different than what media grifters from the right wing do. Yes, people do change their opinions based on whether or not that opinion is going to be well received in the space that they're standing in. That's not preposterous. And also, it would have definitely mattered if the game had been released with a quieter and softer launch, because it then means that they more than likely wouldn't have gotten the reception and the feedback that they would have needed in order to change the game, and they would still fall into the same trap, but they would still not know who to blame. Because then, they wouldn't even have the benefit of the doubt to say, it's the Judd's fault. Because if the only people playing the game were the people that were the target audience, and the target audience wouldn't tell them the reasons why the game sucked, then it means that the target audience doesn't have the heart to tell the developers that their game is shit, and you needed somebody from the moderate people in the public to be the ones to say it. Which means you actually needed those people more than you were complaining about. But again, what do I know? I'm just some dumb chud.
Period. Someone says it sucks, they either go, yeah, so, and ignore them and keep playing. Or they say, bad take, the game is actually great, and then they go back and keep playing it. If people are dropping out of your game, it's because it sucks. Sorry, Chief, it is what it is, okay? Like, you had 100k. Let's forget them, alright? Let's just say it was a bunch of bad faith grifters and memers just going in to dunk on the game. Why didn't it hold 50k? Why didn't it hold 40? Why didn't it hold 30? Why not 20 at least? Why is it still falling now, even from 10k? Like, my dude. What is going on here, man? Am I on candid camera? Is this an SNL skit? Am I about to be surprised like, haha, gotcha, you just got punked? Like, what is this? The layoffs indicate that this game really needed a lot of people to sustain it. And this indicates that the game needed that spotlight. The problem...
Pause. The game is a massive multiplayer MMO RPG type situation. It needs to have a large group of people because it is a live service game. It needs to be able to make its money back. The word we're looking for is critical mass. There is a baseline of money that they need to make for the employers and the employees in order to keep the doors open. They need to pay the people working on the game, and then they need to have the ability to have the capital in which to update the game. If they don't have one or the other, it falls apart.
Problem is, the game wasn't worthy of it. Which, you know, leads me to having one more thing to get off my chest. How about you turn that blame towards the management? Like, seriously, management cooked you guys. They hired 100 people fully knowing they couldn't afford them unless the game was a huge hit and got a ton of concurrent players. Didn't they think or prepare for a plan B in case something went wrong? This just makes it look like the game was hanging on by a thread. Unless this is the plan B and management is actually based and is reverting back to a skeleton crew to try and salvage what they have while also saving precious budget money as they find a path to success without the extra weight. If this is the case, I wish them all the luck, honestly. Like, I don't need to be negative to please my audience. Shit, if I was a straight up heartless jackass, they would probably call me out. There's a decent game somewhere in here, but it's buried under garbage that gets in the way. If I wanted to horse around, I'd play Red Dead Redemption. If I wanted to start each round fortifying walls and the goddamn fortifications are never enough, I'd play House Flipper. If I wanted to go hit rocks or collect loot, I'd go play Minecraft and Fortnite. It is going to be difficult to break that image of the Concord 2, but games like No Man's Sky managed to do it before. Cyberpunk also did it as a single player.
Pause. Cyberpunk had the problem that came from trying to release something with a vision, and they lucked out because No Man's Sky did it before them with the notification. No Man's Sky made a lot of promises, and they finally delivered on those promises and went even further out of their way to demonstrate that, hey, because you gave us the chance to fix it, we're going to prove that we deserve to have the right to do it every single time, and went above and beyond the Call of Duty. Not the same thing, not the same thing, not the same thing, not the same thing.
Clear example. It's not an impossible task, it's just a nightmare difficulty one. And that's why sometimes it leads people into thinking that maybe it's just not even worth it and you may as well just scrap it completely. It also requires big balls, because sometimes if the solution is to just scrap nearly everything and start over, then you need to be able to make that call, and that's not an easy call, and I wish I could have better advice here, but I don't. It's not going to be easy. But articles like this don't help. We'll get to that later in the video though. We were turned into a joke from minute one, largely due to false assumptions about $1 million ad placement, which even prominent journalists soon began to state as fact. Within minutes, it was decided this game was dead on arrival, and creators now had free rage bait content for a month. Every one of our videos on social media got downvoted to hell. Comment sections were flooded with copy-paste meme phrases such as Concord 2 and Titanfall 3 died for this. At launch, we received over 14,000 review bombs from users with less than an hour of playtime. Many didn't even finish the required tutorial. Actually, I don't want to be that guy, but you were turned into a joke about 15 seconds into that trailer, and it had nothing to do with the $1 million ad placement. That was just a cherry on top of the shit cake. I guess this is the developer's new line of cope from the article, blaming how they were turned into a joke because of people and game journalists assuming that they paid $1 million for the final trailer placement at the Game Awards. But no, it was because the game looked like Concord 2. That's it. And by the way, I'll get a bit serious here for a second. That line, I know sounds like a meme, but it has truth to it. You just need to understand what it is that people mean when they say it. And what they mean is, here we go again with yet another studio coming out with yet another, oh look at me and how special I am video game that is meant to be amazing, a new breed of shooter as the trailer itself stated, and then it's just yet another goddamn live service that looks like all the other live services that we're already sick and tired of. Now at the time, people didn't know exactly how the game was played, and that was the only craze that there was. I can understand developers roasting gamers for that one, like you didn't even know how it was played. But fellas, I don't know what to tell you. Pattern recognition isn't always correct, of course not, but sometimes it lands right on target, and this was one of those times, because from the look of the game, the look of the characters, the art style, etc., people just got this feeling that it was going to be just another live service that doesn't stand out from—
Pause. One of the biggest problems when it comes to the argument of pattern recognition, we are so inundated to the point that pattern recognition is cooked. It doesn't work as an argument anymore. You're allowed to have pattern recognition. You're allowed to say, I don't have to wait for the turd sandwich to come out. But if you jump the gun, and you do in fact prognosticate the same way that people like the Black Okage, the Mighty Keef, and 8-Bit Closed Fist, and anybody else that could be considered market shill would, you're adding to the confusion, and you're adding to the problems. You have to do the work. You gotta do the legwork. Certainly, yes, you can say it looked bad, therefore it was probably going to be bad. But at least wait for it to release before you call it bad.
the crowd, and they were right. That's what the Concord 2 thing means. It's kind of like, oh fuck, here we go again. Another live service jumping into the trend. It's a feeling that already—
Pause. No, it's people looking for an example to compare it to something else, so that when they say Concord 2, people immediately know what they mean by Concord 2. You're being self-referential. Oh no, here comes another studio giving us goy slop again. But what's goy slop? Well, you see, it's when a company gives us something we didn't ask for. But what exactly makes it goy slop? What exactly makes it Concord 2? We know what the answer is. We can go through it. But guess what? The people against you would actively say, actually, you're just trying to create a justification to antagonize us. And then you're right back to the exact same problem. Everybody talking past each other, and nobody truly having a conversation. This is why you find yourselves right back here every single time.
already existed even before Concord. It's just that that game became such a laughable disaster that now it's a meme. That's what turned it into a joke right away. And by the way, this might be a December 1st, but I'm also going to be defending game journalists right now, so hang on to your seats, fellas.
I got you, homie.
If usually you have to pay for the final slot at the Game Awards, and this game was the final trailer, it is not unnatural to assume that they paid for it. In fact, it's far more natural to assume that's what happened, rather than Jeff Keighley soying out so much about this one game that he skipped out on $1 million just to give it away for free. Besides, when that was cleared up, they corrected it, which is more than what people can say for what usually happens with these these fucking media companies, where they'll accuse studios of doing things they didn't, like the studio behind Black Myth Wukong, and never correct the record. So genuinely, just stop bitching about this, dude, like it's embarrassing and it makes you look like you expect gaming news outlets to protect you, rather than report the news, which is actually a general problem we have in games media. They go out of their way to protect the corporations or studios they favor, like the Dustborn one, for example, and shield their products, just like they did for Highguard when the game was out. Besides that, I'm not going to bother with the rage bait dig. You released a terrible trailer that was the mockery of the Game Awards of 2025 the moment it was shown. Of course, people were going to end up covering it. It was a funny and unique situation. Usually the last trailers are reserved for banger games. Last year, it was reserved for a banged up game. And it's impossible not to laugh. I mean, come on, as soon as you see this guy right here, John Highguard and his haircut, it's impossible not to laugh. Oh, here we go, boys. Hang on to your seats. We got John Live Service in the house. I also hate how, once again, all he brings up is rage baiters while ignoring constructive criticism or warning calls from content creators. Everyone just kind of gets lumped in to fit this narrative of his of being a great victim. Oh, poor me. I, for example, didn't even make a video about the game until we were days from launch. Other content creators covered the drama and offered valuable advice like, hey, we need more footage. Please give us more videos showing how the game is played. Hey, please, let's do some kind of playtest. Let's get some people involved. Let's see how the game actually works. And there was zero response and zero engagement from these people, from these developers. Zero. Not a single post, not a single word, not a single bit of action. Why aren't we talking about that? Also, lastly, as for the review bombs, while there surely are some, I will not deny that being turned into a meme is going to end up in some review bombing, of course it is. The fact is that you don't need an hour of gameplay to figure out whether you like this game or not. I ended up playing several matches to get footage for videos that I was going to make and really give it the best chance that I could, but genuinely I wanted to quit from round 1 because of the way the game breaks the flow and forces us to monotonously run around mining crystals and collecting loot. But Des, what the hell, man? Just gonna play one round, you're going to dislike it and you're gonna want to move on? Yes, guys, I am, because there's way too many good games to be playing. Life is short. Have you seen the fucking news lately? I don't want to waste my time playing a game I'm not enjoying, and neither does anybody else. Okay, let's bring it back down, okay? Look, this is what the game loop is like. You spawn and you have to fortify walls. That's
I don't think you should be spending time discussing this in the middle of it, since people can be able to tell what the game flow looks like at another place in time. And also, oh look, Carl was right. Like anybody had to say that. Skip, and
it's exciting, like something's happening. But then, once the timer runs out, bam,
still talking, skip.
And there's nothing. So of course they quit. What do you expect is going to happen, Chief? Miracles? Then the numbers keep plummeting and it's the gamers and the content creators. Like, come on. How can it be 2026 and we still have studios releasing bare bones live services and then being surprised when people choose to play the other live services that are already more feature complete from being supported for longer? Jeez, I wonder.
Pause. It's not about playing live services over other live services. It's about doing literally anything else than play or consuming the content being offered. If a person would rather masturbate for 5 minutes than watching my live stream, I have to consider the reasons why they would do that. If the reason why is because they're a gooner, bro, what can I say? What can I do? Do I need to put my big fat hairy asshole in the middle of the screen in order to keep that person? Maybe. But what happens to everybody else who now has to look at my big fat hairy asshole? Come on, Decembro. Come on! Come on, man! Be for real.
How this happens, guys. Somebody should study this phenomena. Somebody get the forensics team on this one, because whoa, that's a tough chestnut to crack.
Pause. Actually, that's literally what we do. The name is Circana. Their job is to crack the numbers that the industry pays 6, 7, 8, 9 figure numbers to solve, so they can then understand the market heuristics and figure out what they're supposed to be choosing to cover and what they're choosing to make content for. That is literally what we do. That is our job. It is the reason why these games are behind. Oh man, somebody's got to spend the time cracking the numbers. Ain't nobody got time for that. Actually, they do, because it's literally their fucking job. Those are the reference points in which the numbers get looked at, and is the reference points for which the industry makes its decisions and choices. And it's also the reference point for which the people with the money, the shareholders, decide if it's worth the investment or not. What you just said, Decembro, is that actually we should never look at the graphs. That's not how this business works. Not on the creative level. No, you shouldn't be just looking at a chart and deciding, well, the flow chart says. You need to actually be doing call and response. If you don't, what naturally is going to happen is what's going to naturally happen every time. Now, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Not everybody comes from a background of looking at the gaming industry numbers. Not everybody that has a YouTube account that covers video games and drama involving video games and video game culture are also people who went to computer science schools with a games track focus, which basically means game dev and game designer. Not everybody has hands-on examples of what they should do for that content. But come on. Again, it's our job to know this. Investigate. Investigate. Make an effort.
Sir, the numbers are back from the lab. It sounds like our game sucks. No, that's impossible, Johnson. Run the numbers again. In discussions online about Highguard, Concord, 2xKO, and such, it is often pointed out by gamers that developers like to blame gamers for their failures and that that's silly, as if gamers have no power. But they do, a lot of it. I'm not saying our failure is purely the fault of gamer culture and that the game would have thrived without the negative discourse, but it absolutely played a role. All products are at the whims of the consumers, and the consumers put absurd amounts of effort into slandering Highguard. And it worked. And here it is, fellas, the me bullshit and flipping the blame to gamers and content creators as if we run some kind of club or something where we just gather together and we decide out of nowhere that we're going to tank a game with slander. This shit is just ridiculous. And it's a meme cycle too. You guys ever notice that? On Monday, we are nothing and we mean nothing. We are insignificant, we are a minority, we need to shut up and just accept that there's a whole world out there with other audiences and other people and other tastes and blah 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 blah. And so again, shut up, because not all games are made for us. So yes, we are going to go ahead and we're going to turn Fable into a cucked shadow of itself. We're going to turn Dragon Age into a clown show. We're going to turn Batman Arkham into a joke and an anti-hero feminist wet dream. But then on Tuesday, it's like, the gamers, the damn gamers, they have too much power, these bastards. Somebody should stop them. This whole thing about content creators and negative content, somebody should do something about it. I'm getting so tired of the duality. Can you people just make up your minds already? Here's a cold water bet.
No, they will not, because they will always blame the consumers that are counterculture to the culture that they're trying to instill, because we are rejecting their culture, and they don't have as much power as they wish. So they are telling people in the industry that gamers are the problem and consumers are the issue, so that they focus on listening to them over us. It's just Leia Alexander again. That's all it is. It's a less interesting, less nominal, less involved, and less knowledgeable Leia Alexander in the form of people like Alyssa Mercante and others like her, trying desperately to create that access shill media marketplace that existed when it was protected by left-wing bias, controlling social media platforms for 15 to 20 years on end.
Path, dude. Your game is just not that good. Again, it's not impossible to salvage. It's not like there isn't something competent buried under horrible decisions, but as it stands, in short, it sucks. There's no such thing as effort here from people to slander your game. People just don't like it and are making fun of it. You think people are overextending themselves just to dunk on a bad game? Like, what are you talking about? And no, your game would not have thrived. Because the thing is, you can make an excuse for the 100k players. You can say that these were 100k players. Many of them were just there to dunk on the game. They didn't even want to give it a chance. They just wanted to get in, download it, play for 10 minutes, and then go and write a negative review. You know, you want to do that for some people who came in and played it for that reason. Go ahead. I'll give it to you. There you go, buddy. 14,000 review bomb negative things. Go ahead. There you go. And if it makes you happy, there you go. I'll give it to you. But what about the rest of the players that would generate an 80,000 peak, for example? What about the players that generated a 50,000 peak? What about the players that generated 40, 30, 20,000? Like, what about all of these people? Why did all of these people leave as well? What, are they all bad faith? Everybody who played the game and didn't like it and just left, all of it was bad faith? No. They left because the game did not appeal to them. And I'm putting it as lightly as I can. And then there's the part of your studio, the people in management. You spend so much time gassing yourselves up about your game that you didn't even plan for a contingency in case not enough people were enjoying it to generate a smaller peak player count. And so 2 weeks later, at around the player peak of 10,000, your studio leads are already panicking and planning to fire over half of you. Your situation was so bad that you absolutely needed to thrive. You needed a high player count. You needed all of those little opinions that you heard during development that this was going to be the next thing to be true. Anything less would have been a financial issue for the studio. So no, you would not have thrived, brother. You would have had a slow launch, less memes for sure, 100% way less memes, definitely not nearly enough as many memes, but the same type of people that would walk into the game, try it out for a while, see if they enjoy it, and then either stick with it or leave. I believe the rate would have been the same. People would have just been leaving.
It probably would have been less, because half the reason why it hit critical mass in terms of memetics is because everybody was involved in the memes and wanted to get their lick in too. It has a little bit of a me next quality. Other than that, big true.
leaving anyway, just like they've been leaving now, brother. Like, dude, I'm moving on from this. It's at this point, it's actually annoying. It's like arguing with a brick wall. They're not even thinking. It's like, did the negative discourse impact this? Of course it has. But he's trying to argue that the negative discourse is not relevant, as if it's undeserved, when it's not. It is deserved. The game is just not that good. People bleeding away from the game shows that. And number two, it implies as if the negative discourse was a blatant attack against the game from people more interested in slandering a game, even if they enjoyed it, than just enjoying a new game that is being fun to them. And that is just delusional, bro. But Dez, what about the people who enjoyed the game? Well, that's the thing. Maybe this game did have some legs on it if, for example, it was designed for less people, like more of a niche game type of thing, rather than designed for mainstream appeal where you put it at the final slot at the Game Awards, which, by the way, I would love if the developer actually, made it clear if they had a say or not, because I don't believe that they had no say. I don't believe that Jeff Keighley just put it there without telling them. I think Jeff Keighley approached them, proposed it, and they said yes, because they thought they had the banger of the year on their hands. So as I was saying, rather than designed to be this mainstream appeal kind of thing where you put it as the last slot at the Game Awards, and you just keep hiring more and more people to the point where the studio grows into over 100 developers, that now this niche free-to-play game is going to have to sustain. Again, you want to blame someone? Blame your management, dude. This game should never have been a secret. It should have been open so that everybody could see this and play it and test out these different ideas being meshed together and help you guys along the way with feedback. This game desperately needed that bubble burst, that bubble from the developers thinking that this was going to be the next biggest thing like ever, like lightning in a bottle. That never should have happened. And
I think it's a lot worse that they needed to blame their creative, because realistically, blaming your executives is not the answer. Executive finance has nothing to do with the game design. They need to blame the head of creative. They should have never had a big team like this if what they needed to do was to be small and agile. Because too many cooks in the kitchen spoils the broth. Some of y'all niggas need to start washing some goddamn dishes. But also, if you only go after the people who basically are the ants that do the work, you're not blaming the head of creative. I don't think that guy was head of creative. So any of the complaints that I would have for him would fall on deaf ears. Who was the head of creative? Other than the High Guard CEO. Who was the CCO? Blame him. Fire him. Replace him. Otherwise, what are we talking about?
people at the top should never just kept hiring and hiring and hiring. It was a stupid idea, bro. Let's move on. Many of Wildlight's former developers will now be forced to assimilate back into the actual corporate industry many gamers accused Wildlight of being part of. Now, every time someone thinks about leaving the golden handcuffs behind in favor of making a new multiplayer game the indie way, they'll say, but remember how gamers didn't even give Wildlight a chance? Soon, if this pattern continues, all that will be left are corporations, at least in the multiplayer space. Innovation is on life support. Man, you had such a nice sentence going there because yes, like multiplayer games are very, very difficult to to sustain for indie developers, but then you went and you ruined it by bringing up innovation, of which Highguard had none of. It was a mixture of various other live services. But there's lots of games are. Yes, and that's no problem at all. I'm just saying innovation has a totally different meaning here. It's not even like a brave thing. Everything in this game looks so safe.
Pause. That's not actually what innovation means. They're using innovation as a signaler of, we have tried different ideas of these mixing and merging mechanics, which is itself innovation. Example, taking Dota 2 and fusing it with Overwatch to create Deadlocked is innovation. Taking Apex Legends and fusing it with a bland form of Quake and Halo is an innovation. What matters is whether or not you think it is an interpretation that you've truly never seen before. You've never seen it before in that context, but it doesn't feel different. That's what you mean to say. That's a fair assumption, and that's a fair accusation, and a fair criticism. But you see how that's different than what you just said versus what I just said? Yeah. I digress. We're almost coming up to the end of the stream because it's about to be 4 o'clock. And we'll be switching over to the state of play. Assuming that I don't take a nap. Forehead.
Was made to try and be for everyone and ending up being for nobody, or being for a very, 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 very small audience. Here's another thing that bothers me about this section of his. It's a total corruption of the truth and of what the indie space is. The reason why people looked at Highguard and were immediately checking out is because it looks like another Corporal Slop live service shooter. It looks like it was something made by EA or Activision or Sony, etc. Why leave those companies and do it the indie way if you're just going to make the same thing and run your business the same way that they run it? Where's the indie connection with the crowd? Where's the beta? Where's the open playtesting to start taking in player feedback feedback and requests from the community? Why did you keep the game a big secret and only let industry people play it? That's not what indie studios generally do. They tend to be far more open and then use that player feedback to turn into quick dynamic changes and updates without having to worry about corporate red tape. Every decision made here makes this look like it was made by a big company, even down to the decision of growing the team to 100 developers. Like, what the fuck is that for? Why do you need 100 people to keep a free-to-play game going? This isn't smart. It sounds like something...
Because it's corporate industry gender parity. Rather than making the team meritocratic and having people be a part of it because those choices were important, it is instead about having a large team to demonstrate the ESG quality of its ability to put together content. It continues to be a bloat.
EA would do and then follow with layoffs, kind of like what just happened. Also, the idea itself, again, this got mocked to hell and back because it then follow with layoffs, kind of like what just happened. Also, the idea itself, again, this got mocked to hell and back because it looked generic as hell. Why is it that this is the idea you guys come up with and Diesel Knights is the idea that some random dude comes up with? Diesel Knights is what gives off true indie way vibes because it's offering something you just don't find elsewhere. It's inspired in Titanfall, which is of course something that people have been asking for, except it's themed around diesel punk rather than futuristic sci-fi stuff. So it's high tech, but it's older, you know? Weapons are reminiscent of World War II or...
The state of play was something. At least you got to play PC ports of Sony games like MSG4 and Death Stranding 2. The less you could care for. I haven't seen it yet. So, goodbye, degeneracy. So, my opinion will probably be different than everybody who watched it live. But I'm going to be watching it in that context, and everybody else basically gets to see what my reaction is, as well as me get my takes in. So, that remains to be seen. Regardless,
Vietnam era stuff, and the Maxi pilots and weapons that they have this old rustic look, like war tanks or industrial type of vehicles and shit.
Jambo, it sounds more like you're just interested in Diesel Knights over Highguard, and that's completely fine. But, you know, people come up with different sounding ideas that respond to an indie developer cycle every single day. You can't just glaze their nuts, bro. You can't just glaze their nuts.
Isn't this the idea that a bunch of developers from Respawn get and make? This should have been Highguard, dude. It should have been this, but, you know, with the top resources and financial backing that Wildlight had. Instead, we got something that looks like generic fantasy stuff. Like, sorry, again, it is what it is. It's just very overdone. No diss to the artists here, but it's just everywhere. Even the concept of hitting crystals is funny. It's insane to me that this is going right over their heads. They speak of indie way, but literally come up with the same exact kind of idea the corporate games industry would come up with, which is why they suck in the first place. They can't get...
It's probably because these people are inside of an industry system. They are not inside of what would be considered a individual team. They are literally run off from the industry.
Cool ideas like these anymore. Not even the smaller studios they acquire. They just keep going for the safest thing possible. Whatever is like the thing that's most inoffensive, the thing that is least adventurous, because you never know, it might just be too much risk. This is why that French dude had to quit Ubisoft and start his own studio to be able to make Expedition 33. Because Ubisoft wouldn't do that. Ubisoft would never take the risk to make a smaller game that looks like it'll be less appealing, but actually isn't. What Sandfall did is not what Wildlight did. Wildlight quit and just made something that EA would make anyway. If they had pitched Highguard to EA would have probably been like, can we monetize the horses? Even if Highguard had a rocket launch, our independent, self-published, dev-led studio full of passionate people just trying to make a fun game with zero AI, zero corporate oversight, deserved better than this. We deserved the bare minimum of not having our downfall be gleefully manifested. I wish...
No, what you deserve and what you got was the opportunity to have the marketplace speak back to you. That's what you got. You deserve to have the right, just as much as any content creator has the right, for people to actually give you the chance to be heard out. That doesn't mean people have to listen to you. It means you get the chance to speak. In your own time, in your own way. They don't have to listen. They don't have to consume. They don't have to enjoy. And they don't have to grin and smile because they bit into a turd sandwich.
Wish the best of luck to the few who remain at Wildlight and hope Highguard can stay the course. I still believe in it, and so do the fans we reached, who continue to champion it on subreddit, Discord, Twitch, and social media. Even though this adventure has come to an abrupt and emotionally challenging close, I don't regret 1 second of it. And there we go, guys. That's basically the end of the article. There's just a few extra things I'll show in a second. I'm tired, and I don't even want to go further here, honestly. Like, if I may be real for a second, I feel for them. I do. Like, yes, losing a dream job sucks. There's only one thing worse than hating your life every day, working a job that you hate, and that is being given a golden opportunity, living what feels like a dream life for a while, and then having that ripped straight from you. I genuinely get it. It sucks. It's demoralizing as hell. But at the end of the day, this was not something that was done to them. It's something that happened. It's a result of bad decision-making at many levels. It's just yet another story in the games industry, honestly.
Pause. Actually, it is something that was done to them. Life happens to you. And if there was infinite money and infinite wealth and infinite opportunity to just float this game as a industry darling, it would literally be kept alive by the fact that they would be spending infinite money on it to try and keep it going. But because they are not a part of the bigger games industry, what actually happened is that they ran out of other people's money as well as their own money, and they're dealing with the consequences of what happens when they ran out of other people's money, and not being able to make an accomplishment out of the gate, where the industry could have stood behind them, because look at how many numbers we have, versus look at how many incels are attacking them. They made the mistake of thinking that because they were industry friends with people that were a part of the problem, that it meant that they were going to be protected from the issue. And those same people that they put all their interest and their love and their protection behind, them motherfuckers treated them like useless fucking condoms. Condoms, in the storm drain even. They used you as a masturbatory aid, and then dropped you with no expectation of what to do next.
It's not even unique at this point. It's not just what was put into the game, but also the company's apparent lack of planning for what to do if things went wrong. And also to the lack of foresight, expecting everything to go right even though they were releasing a bare-bones experience with just one game mode that shouldn't even have been 3v3 at launch to begin with. I don't like the way the dude brings up the word deserve. It's just a useless word here. It's like, we didn't deserve to lose our jobs, or the game deserved better, but what does that really mean at the end of the day? The game is still not good. Period. End of story. That right there is as solid as it gets. It's been continuously losing players. It is quite literally failing to retain a player base. Launch reaction aside, over a month later, it had the best chance it could get, with Jeff Keighley further pushing the game and a bunch of content creators coming out and telling people it's actually amazing when you actually touch it and play it for yourself. 100,000 people go in and gradually over 90% of them leave. At this point, it's time to stop acting like a victim of some kind of stupid-ass campaign. It doesn't matter. If your game was at least minimally interesting, people would still be playing. So what is this whole deserve narrative about at the end of the day? Again, it's literally just, oh hey, feel sorry for me losing my job, which on the human side of things, I do. Bro was living in Cloud 9, and now the dream is over. But that still doesn't make this game good, and it still doesn't make them a victim of some weird thing that just targeted them like, nah, fuck you, your game is going to fail because I am Evilman. I am Darth Vaderson, and I'm here to dunk on your games. Even though I like them, that's me, Darth Vaderson. I enjoy your game, but I'm going to kill it anyway because I'm retarded, I guess. I don't know. Like, there's games out there that I do say, oh man, this game deserves better. But that usually comes down to these games getting small exposure or going through financial issues. Like, hey, Ashes of Creation, for example. Or that other one that was also ended not that long ago. The other MMO, New World, I think it was. New World Eternum or something like that. These are games people...
New World was a game that was made in a marketplace that was inherently never going to be able to sustain itself, which is full loot PvP. It changed itself from full loot PvP to a PvE game, and it died. Because of the fact that it should have known that's not what that marketplace asked for, and they tried it anyways. Ashes of Creation is looking like it was just taxes of evasion. Until that story gets fully investigated, we shouldn't ever reference that one until we fully understand what's going on. Because, again, games are expensive and they need a lot of money. But also, if it is proven true that the head exec was embezzling funds, well, that changes that conversation for the worse, not the better. However, if you're gonna just stop at, but people have opinions, and remember the reference between these things, it's gonna be important. I think the most important part there is it's hard to land, it's hard to stick the landing, and in this situation, it didn't happen.
Enjoyed and were hoping for and got shanked from conditions that just suck. But such is not the case with Highguard. Highguard, just kind of ass, you know what I mean? And all of this, by the way, only makes it worse. This article and the kind of discourse and attention that it draws towards the game only makes it worse because it plays on that thing I mentioned before, where it causes this friction. And that's not good. He's actively making it harder for whatever is left of the team to get out from under this shadow, because objectively speaking, he has a devastatingly mid-game in his hands that bored 90% of its players into leaving. And instead of just acknowledging that, he's going off with all of this shit, you know, delusional, embarrassing things that have nothing to do with why the game failed. All this just creates more friction and further taints the image of the game. After all this, all that he did further was post a few people, game journalists and content creators that he really liked because they were doing positive coverage of the game. I literally don't care, guys. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, what do you want me to say? It really just further shows this issue of toxic positivity and corruption, if I may say as well, where they just expect games media to come in and protect them, shield them from criticism, shield them from problems, and praise their game. It's weird, and I think it's pretty much useless to argue here. You know, it's the dude's perspective, and that's that. Beyond that, he posted this little image here, which is a drawing as a little homage to his team of technical artists who worked on the game, you know, building the little articulations for the characters, etc., with all their pets on the picture and all that. And in closing, I just have one more thing to say here. This image perfectly encapsulates why the game failed, and I refuse to elaborate further. Okay, and that brings us to the end of the video. Oh, chill out, it's a joke. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, then damn. Thank you so much for the support and listening to me yap. Hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry for not using high guard footage.
Yada, 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 yada. Last thing I'll say before I leave, because we'll be switching over in 45 minutes. One does not have to elaborate why your game sucks when they are trying your game out. Nobody has to explain the reasons why they don't like you as a creator. Nobody has to explain the reason why they don't like your content. Nobody has to explain the reason why they don't like your community. Nobody has to explain the reason they don't like anything about you, blah, 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 blah. But if you are going to take the time to claim and consider the fact that people are just hating you for whatever fucking reason, this will apply to everything, not just video games, but also content creation as a whole. It is actually somebody's job to break down the reasons why. Because if what you want is more content creators, then you have to literally do your job. That's what reviewers do. If you play video games for a living, if your living is based around doing content, you need to be able to tell people the reasons why Highguard sucks. If you cannot come up with your own reasons, and you instead rely too much on other people's, it means you're not doing enough work. Because this is all persuasive. It's all persuasive. However, at the same time, you have a problem. If a person goes out of their way to tell you the reasons why your game sucks, and you, the person making it, the creator, rejects their opinion, despite the fact that they are giving you constructive criticism, what happens next is your own fault. Because you allowed it to get there. If you sell bread from a brick and mortar bread store, and you refuse to accept that one of your batches of bread is always moldy, and has the ability to infect all your other bread to be also becoming moldy, and I give you the constructive criticism to improve it, the constructive criticism of a customer is going to have a lot more weight than necessarily the constructive criticism of the Better Business Bureau. However, it can sometimes be a little bit of an inverse problem. Mainly because we're talking about something that comes from a place of passion, rather than something that comes on the standard averages of a actual business model that we're more familiar with, like that of actual consumer interest. The games industry is a people, it is a business and a hobby, and it is a space. To be more accurate, it's a hobby, it's an industry, and it's a people. All existing inside of a giant bubble, which is the stage and the space upon which it's attacking. So technically it's 4 things. But assuming that you don't talk about the very ground it's standing on, it's 3 things. So, if I have a bread store, if I have a brick and mortar bread store, and that's my storefront in the game industry, and someone tells me that I'm selling bad bread, my game sucks, my content sucks, and I don't listen to said customer, if I treat them like just a hater, if it gets to the point where bigger creators that could basically be kingmakers make or break you, the Better Business Bureau, or rather, the health inspectors, come around and give me a rating where they have to shut my store down, I'm responsible for what happened by not taking in that criticism and knowing what it was that I was selling people, which ultimately is my personality. Because obviously people rejecting my work would be a rejection of me, or my ideals, or my ideas, or my audience, or blase blase, or whatever you have. It is not my job as a critical person to resist criticism. I should take in advice from anywhere. Highguard won't take advice from its detractors. So they're going to fail the matter of business because they're not willing to do the hard part, which is considering they might be wrong. Applying that like a blanket statement across the industry is bad, because sometimes gamers don't know what the fuck they're talking about. But they probably are speaking to the core of something that could be wishy-washy, but let's assume that it's not, which is fun. They're looking for the fun quotient. Is your game something that I can spend thousands and thousands of hours on? Everyone's different. If the answer is yes, they can, then you have to try and understand their worldview and the framework behind their worldview. If your answer is no, they can't, you're going to spin the drain until you eventually lose other people's money and you no longer have the ability to make shit. AKA the brick and mortar store going bankrupt. To save yourself the heartbreak, just do the hard job. And just listen to the people. You don't have to talk back. Just listen to what they're saying. Because if what you instead do is you talk back and you say, lol, you don't know what you're talking about, here's where you're going to end up. Alright? Alright. Cool. Based. Interesting. Wonderful. 40-minute break. I will see you all in 40 minutes for the state of play. Thank you for calling in. If you tried to call in, I apologize if you tried to call in and I didn't notice you. Doesn't appear to be the case. Nope, doesn't appear to be the case. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Do all the algorithmically promotional things. I will see you all in 40 minutes. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you. Goodbye.